Thank you so much. And I'm pretty much going to pass the baton to our athletic director, Stephanie DeVos, and she'll highlight our guests in sports this evening.
Good evening. At this time, I would like to introduce to you Dan Trapiccio.
All right, I'm here on behalf of Athletes Making Progress AMP and Hudson Athletics, and today we will introduce to you our spring sports athletic teams to recap their season. So if you guys could all stand up here, please. Yes. All of you. So first we have Hudson Baseball. We have Josh Evenson, Miles Lewis, and Hunter Fry.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Miles. I'm a junior here, and just talk about a little bit about the baseball season. We started out with kind of a crazy spring with the weather, and we didn't get outside till 6 weeks after when we were supposed to, and we pretty much had all of our season cut in half. So we had to play all our conference games in doubleheaders, and we handled the adversity really well, and we ended up going 14-2 and won a conference championship. So
Congratulations.
it was good. It was good. So pass it to Josh.
All right, I'm Josh. Like Miles was kind of saying, we won our first conference championship in 34 years, which was a pretty big deal for us and something we're really proud of. And also, we took another trip to the sectional finals. We lost, but we won the first game in 12 innings, so we were a little tired after that. But yeah, it was a really successful season and something we're proud of.
Wonderful. I'm Hunter, and we had a great group of guys this year. We had 9 players go all conference. So, and Mike Holmes made it to All-Star Classic. He's the 5th player ever to do that in Hudson. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
One more thing here. We kind of had a crazy thing happen within the last week. Mike Holmes, one of the senior studs, he dove for a ball and ruptured his spleen. So he had surgery, I think it was, 2 days ago? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to him. So, yeah.
Next up, we have Coach Schaub with boys golf.
Good evening. Sorry I don't have any of the players here. I think these golfers must be shy. Although you wouldn't know it on those van rides, I'll tell you. And we won't go into any of those stories. It was kind of different this year. The last few years we've had senior-laden teams. You know, many of the top players were seniors for 2 years in a row. And so it was a little easier. You know, they knew what they were doing. They had some experience, some competition experience. And so then we come to this year, and things changed. We had a team that had freshmen and 3 sophomores and a couple of seniors that hadn't played much. And then you go with a season that doesn't start for 5 weeks at least. And so that was very difficult to get that young team, inexperienced team, ready for matches. In fact, we had our first match at River Falls, and as a team, we had not been outside practicing on a golf course yet, and we hadn't putted on a putting green yet, and we went to our first conference match. So you can kind of see where the season was starting with inexperience and no practice and no team together yet really. And so as our season progressed in conference, we struggled in the beginning, weren't sure quite what to do, no experience on any of the golf courses we played, and that's always difficult, especially with a young team. So we finished 3rd or 4th in most of the conference matches and actually ended up 4th in conference this year. So it was a struggle early on. We had a player do very well. Mitch Simonet took second team all-conference, played well in the final match to move up into that spot. And we also had Tor Hansen, one of our seniors, was academic all-conference. So we had some nice awards there for the team, even though we did not have a lot of experience going in. As the season progressed, we got near the end. We did have some highlights. We won some tournament at Tartan with a really good score. We finished the season in conference with a 2nd place finish and our best score of the year at the conference final for 18 holes. So the team was starting to play well. And we went into the regional tournament up in Rice Lake, seeded 5th or 6th maybe, and we actually took 2nd in the regional. So the boys are really playing well and excited and showing that they had some scoring skills, which I thought they did in the beginning. It just took a while to come out with the way the season was going. So we went to the sectional in Stevens Point, going in with the top group, playing against some pretty good teams in there, and we struggled and finished 6th in that sectional tournament, and we're finished for the year. One of our players who just missed out on conference individual title missed out state by 1 stroke. He bogeyed the 17th hole and missed out a chance to go as an individual. So, and as they know, every stroke counts. You never know what's going to happen. On a side note, it's really great to see some of these kids, the way they play, the way they practice, the way they work. Every year, seniors, this year with sophomores, freshmen, great student athletes. It's amazing the things these kids have to do with the schedule that golf has, knowing that they're going to be gone half days, some full days, working to keep up on their studies, getting ahead. And we talk a lot about that, and they follow through. In fact, there was one time we had a couple weeks where we had 5 matches in a week. We had a Thursday off the one week, and on a Wednesday match we had an 18-hole tournament, and it was just an invitational. We didn't count for conference, and I asked some of the players I knew were playing pretty much all week. I said, I'm going to give you the day off if you want. Now, to ask a golfer not to play golf, that's pretty tough. And they love playing, and they wanted to play, I finally the night before said, hey, guys, you got to make a decision. Are you going to play or not? And they said, no. We got too much homework to do. We're way behind. We've got 2 quizzes, and those kind of stories came out. So it's great to see that these kids are athletes, and they're also great students. It's fun. Also, publicly, I'd like to thank Stephanie DeVos and Jane Branson for all the work they did this year, for the spring sports especially. I mean, I think I talked to Jane every morning after I turned my computer on and saw another match that was canceled because the course wasn't open, or it snowed and now they're closed. And we talked to her every single morning, trying to reschedule, change schedules, send out new contracts. It was quite a battle for about 2 straight weeks, and it just kept going and going and going. And so it was quite a season, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of years. We got a lot of experience now coming back, kids that know what's up, and we have a really good group of kids, so I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach Schaub. Now we have girls soccer. We have Nicole Mara and Kristen Scovata.
I'm co-captain Nicole Mara. We ended our season with a 9-7 record, and we played so much better than we did at the beginning because we were stuck inside with all, same as every other team. We were stuck inside, couldn't really do much when you're trying to play soccer indoors. But by the end of the season, we played so well. It's probably some of the best soccer I've played in all 4 years that I've been here. When we went to the playoffs, we ended up upsetting Eau Claire North and moving to the second round. And then we ended up losing to the number 1 team, DC Everest, 3-5.
Hi, I'm Kristen Sabatka. I'm also a senior co-captain. Besides just overall record and technicalities, we also wanted to talk about some more stuff that means a lot to us that we did. We had a really great group of girls. They were a younger group of girls, but we really wouldn't have traded them for anything. We all had each other's back the whole season. In the fall, last fall, we graduated a girl that passed away, and we played a game for her, for Jordan. That's where we got these T-shirts. We played against Eau Claire North, and at our alumni game, we all came together and planted a tree in her honor. So those are good things for us to pull together as a team and do. We also volunteered at Bowl for Kids at the Hudson Bowling Alley as a Big Brothers Big Sisters. One of our coaches is in Big Brothers Big Sisters, so he encouraged us to do that, and it was a really great experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have girls softball.
Hi, I'm Megan Eisenman. I'm a senior this year, so I'm almost done. But we, as well as everybody else, had to start really late this year, so we played just straight conference games, and then we had 1 tournament, which we won first place. Our overall record was 13-5, and 3 of our losses came to the defending state champion team, which was Chip. And then we had 6 girls that made all conference. And we had freshman and sophomore make second team, so that's awesome to see talent on the rise, and they're going to be here for a while. And then, what else do I have? That's about it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Morgan Fisher. This year we've been able to come together more as a team by focusing on our individual efforts, and each year we grow to become stronger.
I'm Kendra Little, and this year we made improvements to our field,
And we added a scoreboard and a new sound system that kind of added to the excitement with the fans and everything. And we want to thank the Rotary Club for the generous donations to get those. And this coming year, we plan to stay together as a team by working through the summer and through the winter doing dome ball.
I want to just say real quickly how well our team played this year as a team. The focus became more on team efforts and team goals than individual, which is really good to see as a head coach. And we had an incident where we lost one of our team members' parents this year. And that was rough on everyone. To go from the high of winning a regional championship game to a wake within 20 minutes was a real contrast for the girls. But to their credit, they really pulled together as a team, and we've become a real family this year, and I look forward to the next few years, and you'll get to see some really great softball played here in Hudson, from our feeder programs and the booster program we have here to the effort, and the girls are really buying into what we need to accomplish and what we need to do to be one of the best teams in the state. And the future's coming. It looks really bright. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, athletes.
Now we have boys tennis.
Hi, I'm Griffin Robertson. I'm a senior captain of the team, and this year we started pretty late, missed about 10 matches due to the weather and stuff, but we were able to get out there and we went 17-3 and got second in conference, which is pretty good for us. So, yeah.
And I'm Sam Duco. I'm junior, and after conference we went to the sectional meet, and we sent 6 out of our 7 flights to sectionals, and we ended up taking second as a team there. And past that, we sent me and Griff and a freshman, Mark Johnson, all made it to state, and it was a really fun year.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congrats to you guys. Now we have track.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a junior sprinter. And some of the highlights that we had this year, obviously we faced the weather just like any other spring sport, but we have really great coaches and we learned to overcome that. And the girls team was Big Rivers Conference runner-ups, and then we were the WIA regional champs, and then we ended up taking third at sectionals. And we ended up sending an all-time high amount of girls to state. We sent 14 girls, we sent three relays and 4 individuals, and that was a big accomplishment for us. And overall, we had a really great season, and we ended up winning a lot of meets that we had, even though a lot were canceled. So it was a good season.
Hi, I'm Taylor Steffen. I'm a senior. I throw shot put and discus. This year, I made it to state and I got 5th place. And I was on I was on first team all conference and second team all conference. Track has just been a great and wonderful experience for me, and I've been playing sports ever since I was young. I think I've been playing sports in the Hudson area for like 13 years, and without a doubt, I can say that Coach Holm is my favorite coach by far. She puts so much effort into each and every athlete that she has. And each year, I think we start off with like 75 girls, and she knows each and every girl, and she knows their PRs. She knows what's a good race or what's a good throw for all the events, which is hard to keep up on. I would also like to thank my coach. He's actually a young coach. This is only his 2nd year coaching the throws. But he has taught me so much, and he put so much time in the off season. When I went to off season training at different facilities, he would drive over and help coach me there. And I'll just say that I'm gonna really miss track and field at Hudson, but thankfully I'm gonna be going on and playing in college at UW-Madison, so I guess I won't miss it too bad, I guess.
Congratulations.
I would just like to add one thing, because this lady is so humble. She was in the top 10 in the state all year long and was broke the record and in the 100-meter dash at a 12.54. So Julia Johnson. Douglas. Track.
Hi, I'm Ryan Woodmeyer. I'm a junior, and boys track had a successful season this year. We got second at conference. We placed first at regionals and second at sectionals. And out of all the people that went to sectionals, we ended up sending 12 of our athletes. And we had like I said, a successful season, other than injuries and the weather conditions. But other than that, we competed hard, and it was very successful.
Congratulations.
I'm John Yucatel, sophomore, and I do pole vault. Like Ryan said, there were lots of injuries and lots of meets canceled and practices canceled because of the weather, but we pulled it together in the end and ended up doing really well.
Hi, I'm Ryan Schramm. I'm a junior. We had a really great season, besides having a lot more indoor meets than we wanted. We had a ton of guys go to state, and even with as many as we had, we should have had a lot more. A lot of injuries. I know Brandon DeAndre, he was really close to getting that 200 record and pulled his groin at, I think it was sectionals, so unfortunately he had to cut his season short. We had a really fun time at state. It was a great opportunity. Unfortunately, we didn't place or get too many points, but it was a fun time. I just really enjoyed track this year. Thank you.
What was your event?
I run the 400, a 4x400 meter relay. So we also, that was the only event I went to in state, but that was really fun.
Congratulations to everybody. Thank you for all of your effort. Thank you for representing Hudson School District the way you do. Appreciate it very much.
Just overall, I'd like to summarize quickly. We had a really fantastic year at Hudson Athletics, and I just wanted to go over for like the Big Rivers Conference. Out of 22 sports, we placed first 3 times, second 10 times, and third 3 times. So we placed, in the top half a lot, so that was good. And another thing, just for participation rates, we've had 46% of the students at high school participate in a sport, so that's really good. Now Ms. DeVos has a few things to say.
That's pretty, the figure of 46%, you should have that. 46% of our students participate in athletics. That's a huge accomplishment. That doesn't include clubs and other activities. So congratulations to you guys. You have just witnessed a few stories, just a few, from these kids about lifelong memories, lifetime memories. And I am so proud to be a Hudson Raider. I'm so proud of these kids, they'll never know. What stems from that is a good foundation, and that's our coaches. And not only the hard work from the kids, but we have one of the best coaching staffs in the state of Wisconsin and the United States, I would go to say. So congratulations to all, and have a great summer. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Next, I'm pleased to present to you the 2 educators who were presented the Star Excellence Awards from the Education Foundation of Hudson this year. Both are high school teachers, Mr. Andy Hayes and Mr. Neil Hatfield. And just a little background. Andy teaches choral music at the high school. He's taught for 13 years, 10 of those in Hudson. He earned his BA at Luther College in Decorah, Iowa, and a master's at Northern Arizona University. And he and his wife Jennifer live in Hudson. And as I look around the table and look out in the audience, I think there are many of us whose children have been touched by both of these outstanding teachers. Neil teaches American history at the high school, and he's taught for 17 years, including 12 in Hudson. And Mr. Hatfield earned both his BA and master's at the University of St. Thomas, and he and his wife and 3 children also live in Hudson. So congratulations to both Andy and Neil. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Come on back. Can't get away that fast.
Not that easy, huh?
Certainly, both of these outstanding teachers represent the passion and dedication of other teachers in the Hudson School District. And Andy, I attended the Spring Festival at the end of May. Certainly an uplifting performance, a culmination of your work and your students' work throughout the year. So congratulations. I know you and Carrie have worked very hard, and you could see it from the beginning of the year to the end, and the complexity of their musicality was outstanding. So thank you and congratulations. And Neil, you certainly are recognized by your students in social studies who enjoy your classes, but not only just in class, but on the football field as well. And you are have touched many lives through both of those experiences and time at Hudson High School. So thank you for that. Congratulations to both of you.
Congratulations. Thank you. I'd just like to add a comment too, but to thank Stephanie DeVos as well. I realize that she's up here giving a lot of accolades to a lot of different people. She deserves a few herself, particularly this past spring, I imagine, with all of the delays and so forth. So Stephanie, you don't need to you don't get to leave either without getting an appreciation as well. So thank you. Yeah. Next, we have our superintendent's report. Mary?
We have so many of our students involved in summer school, summer swim, school-age care. Our schools are vibrant during the summer, and I'll just give you a flavor of that with the number of students that are registered in many of our programs. We have a program called Introduction to Kindergarten that starts in June, and we have 49 students registered. And when I talk about registered students, there certainly could be more that will come. June summer school starts on Monday, so it's coming quickly. We also have in June a summer school elementary enrichment classes, and those are held at North Hudson and at EP Rock, and we have 578 students as of the last count. Middle school enrichment and remedial classes, there's over 85 students that will benefit from those classes this summer. At the high school, enrichment and remedial classes, 320 students are involved. Then we have K-12 special education classes that extend from June to July, and there are 36 students registered. Early childhood classes in June and July, again, 32 students. Summer school, school-age care, as you know, is a very large program for us, and that extends June through August. And right now, there are over 400 students that are taking advantage of that program. And this is the first time, if you'll remember, that we're serving lunch. So wonderful opportunity for those students and families. Summer Swim, which is a tremendously large program. It runs 8 weeks and registration is ongoing, but currently we have about 500 students and we expect many more to be registered there. So the number of students I've talked in total tonight in that June and July series is about 2,000. We expect that it will be more than 2,000 students involved in those classes. And we still have other summer classes to come. So we have elementary remedial math and reading camp in August, so registration hasn't occurred yet. We have special ed classes in August. We have band and orchestra camps to come. Certainly many students take advantage of those. And so we certainly have a lot of our buildings active in the summer, a lot of our students engaged, and many of our teachers working as well. So I'd like to thank Learning Services Coordination, Sandy Kovac certainly for these, Corey McIntyre for his work, and Sandy's staff, Anita Stillwell and Annette Kelly for the work they do, tremendous work they do to organize all of this.
Thank you. Thank you. We certainly have a robust program in the summers. It's a little different than what it used to be, I think. So, next we have 3 reports. The first one, high school international scholars. Sandy?
Thank you. And I'll ask Luke Chafee, social studies teacher at the high school. We have lots of social studies teachers here tonight, to step forward. And Luke and two of his colleagues at the high school took a group of students to Ireland and Scotland. Yeah, Ireland and Scotland over spring break, and they'd like to share some of the highlights with you tonight.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, I was going back to 2 years ago. So.
Yeah, Paris last time. I apologize in advance. Public speaking terrifies me.
It's just us.
My student counterpart fell through. She had to work tonight, so I apologize. It's just me. So we went to Ireland and Scotland. There were 23 students and then the 3 chaperones, so 26 of us total. Thank you. Basically, we had 10 meetings up front using that advisory time because all of the students who went were largely upperclassmen, so they had free time during that advisory time to meet academically. Mostly we focused on cultural elements of taking a trip, so life in Scotland, life in Ireland, similarities, differences, religion, philosophy, politics, stuff like that, and the details of traveling like packing and I don't know, stuff like that. We do one activity where they all bring their bags the meeting before, and then we wander around the high school so we can experience what traveling with 26 people is like. It gets ugly when we try and go up the elevator to the weight room in the high school because you can't get 26 people in there. I had 2 ideas for how they could better engage other students abroad or the culture specifically. Skype and a school visit. I spent a lot of time emailing back and forth with school officials in Ireland. And eventually I worked my way up to I forget what her title was, but she's right below the country's superintendent or the equivalent of. And it turns out the week we were there was the week they do standardized testing as a country, so no schools were available. And then the Skyping part, it seemed like a really great idea until one student pointed out that the times don't match up at all. So basically the time that would have worked, they were sitting in school, and then in the afternoons, it would be like 2 in the morning for kids in Ireland. So that fell through. But up front, if I take another trip, up front cultural elements are going to be built in something. It won't be Skype, that doesn't work, but it'll be something. Maybe, I don't know, emailing, Facebook, and tweeting with each other. I don't know. There'll be something new by then anyway. All right. And then the trip, like I said, it was focused on broadening understanding. And Ireland, especially Northern Ireland, was really interesting for the students because it was such recent history that Protestants and Catholics weren't getting along there. So we got to see murals like that one. Some students were concerned about their safety, but we assured them it was all taken care of. It's just a little weird to see masked men holding guns. And this is a residential area. There's a park across the street. But they decided as a society to leave them up. So the students got to experience issues like that. We got to see the Protestant-Catholic divide expressly in flags. They still do this. The Protestant side will have the flag of Ireland. The Catholic side will have the flag of the United Kingdom. And they're literally just separated by streets, but that it's just a peaceful protest now. So the students found it really interesting. And then religion played a big part, so we went and saw some absolutely beautiful churches. I think the history part, I'm a history teacher. Well, I'm a government teacher now, but history by tradition. Anyway, it's really nice for the kids to experience time outside of the United States because old here is 80, 90, maybe 100-year-old building, but you walk into buildings that have foundations that are 1,200 years old, and it's really puts it into perspective for the kids. And then Trinity College, I expressly asked if we could go there for a cultural element. They do have the Book of Kells there, if you're familiar. But on top of that, it was nice to get to experience a college campus. So we were there, we had lunch there, we interacted with some of the students. It was just nice for them to see life, and it's shockingly similar to campus on the United States, but including Starbucks, but they enjoyed it. Government was a big piece. I am now a government teacher, especially with how Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the whole United Kingdom share power. Last time when I went to Paris, I had them write a paper along with a book. This time it was more discussion-based because the paper it didn't work quite how I wanted it to. But we talked a lot about how government played a role, politics, religion, how it all intermingled. And then culture, and honestly, I don't know what it is with Ireland and Scotland, but the amount of stuff the kids recognize that comes out of those two countries, it's really amazing for the students because they're like, I know that music, I know that artist, I know that poet. It was just impressive. That's it. Now, my one final thing, taking Hudson students abroad. I've done it twice now, taken 46 of them total. I don't know if it's just Hudson students or what, but they are a wonderful group of kids to go places with. I mean, we practiced up front, but they were respectful, they were polite, they held doors for people, they let other people go in line because we were a big group. They're just a wonderful group of human beings, and I'd like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to travel with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you tell us how the students were selected?
Yeah, basically it's open to anyone who is, this time we opened it to sophomores as well, and we had 2 sophomores go. But really the criteria is good attendance, good academic standing, so you have to have a cumulative GPA of C or better, and then no issues with administration. And other than that, it's open to anyone, and that's kind of on purpose, mostly because if you want to go, like we're taking a trip to China, well the school is, I'm not, you have to be in the Chinese language program. Choir, Mr. Hayes takes an insane amount of students abroad. More power to him. But you have to be in choir. So I purposefully made a program where anybody who wants to experience culture abroad can have the opportunity to do that.
Any other questions? How is it funded? How did you?
It is entirely self-funded. The students pay. We did do some volunteer type, or not volunteer, fundraising type activities, but mostly they pay for it. And that's, I had them sign up insanely early this time. They made fun of me, but that way they could have 2 summers. Yeah. So if they needed to get a job, nanny, babysit, clean dishes, whatever, they had time. And they enjoyed that time more than the fundraising activities.
Well, thank you for taking your time to give our students this kind of experience. I'm sure it will be invaluable for them. So,
Mr. President, just a quick comment. I've had the opportunity to go to Scotland a few times, and my wife is a professor at UWRF, and the UW program has a Wisconsin and Scotland program right outside Edinburgh, which it looks like you've been to. But what I was going to say, if you ever do return there, that might be someplace you might want to take the students because it's a beautiful campus right outside Edinburgh.
Is that the Dalkeith House?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually contacted that program through, because I got my undergrad at UWRF, and we talked back and forth and actually discussed future opportunities for doing that very thing, either actually having academic programs there or just visiting. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility in the future.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks again. Yeah.
And as you can see, the programs are key at our high school efforts with the global literacy, our GLO and global literacy. And as Luke mentioned, we have a group going to Germany this summer. There's a group going to China the next summer. And so we're kind of working out a plan, a long-term plan, so we know exactly who's going when. And the choir, again, is planning a trip to Spain next spring break. So wonderful things happening.
Wonderful. Bring your own device and active learning labs. Here comes Dave with his own device.
There it is. What is device? Paper, pencil. All right. So yes, Dave and I are here to speak regarding Bring Your Own Device and Active Learning Labs this evening. As you're well aware, 21st century learning requires students to be able to live, learn, and work in our information-rich society. And the Hudson School District highly values the role of technology in education and is pleased to share with you this evening information regarding our efforts to increase access to e-learning opportunities through both Bring Your Own Device and Active Learning Lab environments. Now, this shift won't happen, with the click of a switch. It's going to take a process over time, but our end goal is 24/7 access to learning for all students, and we'll highlight the initial steps in this process as we're preparing to move forward. Next slide. So the first one we're going to discuss is Bring Your Own Device. So in a BYOD environment, students are encouraged to bring a personal device to school as a learning tool. And creating a BYOD environment allows students then more access to technology tools than what the district alone can supply. So if we were a group of students working, you can see right here, someone would have an iPad, someone would have a laptop, a different type of laptop with the Apple. We'd have a variety of tools that we have, so we have more access to information than what we would currently have just in our high school or middle school experiences. And by connecting the Hudson School guests, by students connecting to the guest wireless network, I'll get this out yet, students can access the numerous web-based learning tools that are available. Next, the District Technology Council, which is comprised of teachers, students, community members, administration, and IT staff, has been working to establish goals and a plan for deployment of BYOD. The goals of Hudson's BYOD initiative are listed, as you can see. The expectation is that teachers begin to enhance what they already do by incorporating technology and increase student expectations for technology use in solving problems, creating presentations, collaborating with others, and more. Students will be able to use a combination of district technology and their own to facilitate learning. BYOD will provide students anytime, anywhere learning. So how we plan to get started. Next slide. We hope to begin the BYOD rollout in the 2013-14 school year in our 2 secondary buildings. General information and frequently asked question documents developed by the Tech Council are ready to send out to staff, parents, and students. We are ready to go forward with vendor displays similar to band night, if you've ever been to a band night where they have the instruments displayed and you can ask questions and check things out. And as well as learning about the requirements best suited to meet their child's needs. So for example, if you know that your child is planning to take some of the pre-engineering classes, you would want to make sure you selected a device that had quite a bit of memory. Same as if you knew your child was going to take a variety of arts classes, they may need a device that has quite a bit of storage. So again, you want to match the device to the child. And any student choosing not to bring their own personal device will have the opportunity to use a district-owned laptop during the school day when available, or borrow a district-owned laptop for checkout during the entire school year if the students qualify for free or reduced lunch services. And next slide, Diane. The use of devices in the classroom will be set by the classroom teachers. Teachers will let students know their expectations and specific classroom rules for use of devices. Students will still need to comply with district policy regarding technology and use and possession of personal electronic communication devices. The district will work hard to provide learning opportunities for teachers so that they can easily integrate technology tools into existing curriculum. Teachers will receive implementation support from coaches, the media specialists, the ITS department, from peers, and through ongoing curriculum work. After-school technology classes this past year focused on offerings which support BYOD, such as Google Docs and Flipped Classroom. The high school has included technology into several of their professional development opportunities this year. And in preparation, the middle school house, one of the middle school houses, conducted like a BYOD pilot where they had students bring their own devices, and it was highly successful. It's what we often view as those small details, the devil's always in the details, such as charging throughout the day, and storage when they go to lunch or PE that require our most thoughtful planning.
Now we're going to take a look at active learning labs, and if you just take a look at the picture that's on your screen, you're going to see a room that is devoid of children, and that is purposeful so we can take a look at the actual structure of an active learning lab. As we go through this, we'll make the connection of the from the active learning lab to the bring your own device environment. But first, I just wanted you to notice the environment of an active learning lab. You'll notice the round tables, and they're designed for engagement and collaboration and interactive student-centered learning. You'll see the arrangement. Now, this is this is actually a generic picture of an active learning lab, but it shows the key features that we would like to include as we move forward. You'll also notice on the wall, you'll see monitors mounted just above the whiteboard. That's a key element. The monitors are connected directly to the student workstations, and that allows the students to share their learning with their group or others in the classroom. They can immediately connect their devices to those monitors so the students can all share that learning experience. And although you cannot see it, a robust wireless infrastructure is absolutely necessary to allow this sort of environment to work. We've had already significant upgrades to our wireless infrastructure, and it really is working well. We've heard wonderful reports at all levels, actually, that things are looking very good. There's a few minor tweaks that we need to make sure we don't have any dead spots and so forth, but we're in very good shape with our wireless infrastructure. Next slide, please. We had the opportunity to visit the U of M and look at their active learning labs, and it was a wonderful experience. We had several groups go. We had social studies teachers and different district leadership take a look at their system, and they were very gracious in sharing their learning. And this picture that you'll see here, again, is a generic picture as we don't have any active learning labs set up yet, otherwise we'd show you Hudson students up there. But when you look at this picture, suddenly the technology doesn't jump out at you. What jumps out at you, you can see the students leaning in, working with one another, working in different arrangements, and that's because the active learning lab is designed for student engagement and student learning opportunities. The technology is simply the vehicle to allow that to happen. We saw some incredible opportunities for learning at the U of M when we were able to visit. Not only were we able to tour the rooms, we were able to see the students in action. Very interesting and compelling to watch students shift around the room from station to station, share their work in small group, large group, and then with the entire class. A very flexible and fluid environment. The technology behind an active learning lab, again, is designed to link directly to a build your own or bring your own device environment. Although it's not necessary to have active learning labs to run a bring your own device structure, it's a very nice device or tool to allow it to prosper and really get the most out of that system. So what you'll see in an active learning lab is, again, a seamless opportunity. So the technology that is there is designed to promote the collaboration, and again, the idea is that students can work in individual setting, small group, or large group with the technology supporting that learning in a variety of styles. Teacher leadership is absolutely key to active learning labs and honestly to bring your own device. Sandy's already mentioned several examples, the Technology Council being key. They've worked very hard on creating a skeletal professional development plan, which will be fleshed out more as we move forward, frequently asked questions, and a general plan for implementation of Bring Your Own Device. And they've set us up well to essentially entertain the questions that need to be asked. But I want to talk about a few other groups of teacher leaders that will be key in the implementation of the active learning labs. You'll see the instructional coaches listed. We have instructional coaches now at all levels, and they are incredible teacher leaders that do a lot of work to keep our system moving forward in all areas. This is one that they will play a very specific role. Also, through the restructuring of IT, which you've heard about in the past, we've added a position through reallocation of a technology integration coach. This individual will play a key role in the ongoing embedded professional development as well as the training that's necessary to operate in this environment. And you'll see the media specialists listed as well. The media specialists, especially in the middle school and high school, because Bring Your Own Device is a secondary initiative, the media specialists will work to disseminate the information and to allow all teachers to gain access to the skills that are necessary. The instructional coach will work directly with the media specialist, helping them, train them, supporting them, and then allowing them to train the teachers in the buildings and support their learning and their work. And then you'll see the secondary social studies teachers. The secondary social studies teachers will play a very key role. We have adopted a curriculum, TCI, that is ready to operate in a BYOD and active learning lab environment. Although, again, it's not key to use that setting for this curriculum, it definitely enhances and opens up opportunities. So we're looking at eventually creating active learning labs for all of our secondary social studies teachers, and their classrooms would then become essentially a learning lab for all of the other teachers in the building to be able to learn from their experiences in implementing. The curriculum would allow all of the learning to take place in a wireless electronic environment. There's no hard textbooks at all. It's all electronic. Students are able to interact with one another, with their teacher, and with each other in an electronic platform. So the active learning labs really would be a key way to maximize that learning experience. Okay. And then finally, the connection to HSD 2025 is strong. Looking at the two GLOs, one in technology literacy and one in entrepreneurial learning. I know it's not best practice to read PowerPoint slides to you, but I am going to read these two just because I think as you've heard the description of BYOD and active learning labs, this language is, when I read this again, and this is something we look at so frequently and we make sure that we make decisions based on HSD 2025, but every once in a while something comes up that really drives that connection home. So students will demonstrate the appropriate use of technology tools, evaluate the quality of sources, and incorporate technology into daily work. BYOD and active learning labs speak to that very directly. And I think even more interesting is the entrepreneurial learning GLO. Students will demonstrate their ability to work in teams and collaborate in the spirit of innovation. Students will demonstrate an understanding of what it means to adjust, be flexible, and change a course of action. We believe strongly that the BYOD and the active learning labs will support both of those GLOs quite directly. Thank you.
Any questions, Dave? Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Mr. President, Sandy, I think you mentioned vendors or vendors being present there. Will there be, will the district be negotiating pricing or
Yes.
using our buying power to help get lower pricing
Correct.
for students?
Nancy Toll is already on top of that and has some quotes based on numbers of computers. So obviously, the more we purchase, the lower the price. Correct.
Okay,
And also, I'm sorry.
I know this question might be strange, but for a band and other an orchestra, they can lease the equipment. Will equipment also be available to lease if students can't afford to purchase?
I'd have to check. I don't know if that's an option now, but might be one we can pursue.
That's a very good question. Right now, we're looking at a few different devices, from a kind of fully functional laptop to like a Google Chromebook, a more web-ready device. But we haven't looked specifically at the leasing option. That's something we'll have to explore.
Kind of related to that question, Dave or Sandy, do you see any issues with accessibility of students and having an appropriate device to bring with them? I mean, it seems like every student has a phone, but I mean, have you anticipated any issues with that where there might be some?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because in a BYOD environment, not all students will have the same device. And also in a BYOD environment, one device is not always the right device. Now, smartphones are fantastic. You can do a lot with them, wonderful learning opportunities, but they're not going to be appropriate for all things that you'd want to do. iPads are definitely all the craze in education right now, and they're wonderful devices for learning, but you can't do everything with them. So in this blended environment where you have district-owned devices still, so a guaranteed level of access, as well as devices that students are bringing, that's part of the learning process, essentially, is making those choices. When is it right to use the smartphone? So if you're in a group and you have two students that have phones, and one student that has a laptop, and one student that has an iPad or a Kindle Fire, it's when is it the right time to use that device? So that's part of the learning that we plan to include.
Question, Mr. President?
Yeah.
A couple questions. So are there any changes to the policies that we need to look at for the devices as we start to look at BYOD?
Yep, and we've already made an adjustment. The one policy we had to move so that we opened it up for middle. We had it open at high school for devices. We have opened it up now for all secondary.
Okay.
So the policies are already, the adjustments have already been made.
Okay. And then the second question is, as far as consent, in terms of the students or parents even understanding the policies as they are today, is there anything that they need to sign or to ensure that all students and parents must read and be aware of those from a security, privacy, and...
Yep, for the acceptable use, there is a form that does have to be signed each fall.
Thank
Correct.
you.
Question. So if I'm a teacher, you name the teacher, name the subject, and I say, you know, for our classroom, we're going to do a lot on the. We're going to have a active learning classroom, or we're going to be using, you know, classroom structure on. There's no textbooks in my classroom.
Correct.
So, for instance, but a cell phone's not going to hack it. So a Kindle Fire is not going to hack it.
Correct.
So I could say, hey, to be in my classroom, we're not going to have a textbook. So you're going to have a laptop or something you can type on. So can I teach you to do that next year with this policy? Is it a I mean, so if a student can't get access to a laptop, the district will provide them one, or how does that work?
That decision wouldn't be made individually by the teacher, it'd be made through the curricular prep process when the decisions are made. However, a teacher would have the right at any point to say, in this classroom at this time, the device can't be used, but not the ability just to say, you know what, I'm going to go a completely different route and establish a different curricular expectation.
But I think part of this question is, next year we're starting out with a strongly encourage people to bring, you know, our students to bring a device. We're not ready to say the must do, but we are going to also stress then that there are laptops available in the media center. There are laptops available in your local library, so that if a classroom is totally flipped to a non-textbook, that they're going to have to find a place to go to do their work.
But a teacher could push against that pretty well and say, this is going to be a pretty technology-savvy classroom.
Correct.
So, and I just think we're fooling ourselves. A phone is not, you know, no one at work works on their phone.
Correct.
So, you know, I think the idea of that a phone is, you know, is really usable in a classroom, it really isn't. So, screen's too small, you can't get enough content, you can't type on it. In general, you know, I don't think it's a great device for a classroom. It's a great device to, you know, do a Snapchat with someone.
Right, or a research piece, but yeah.
Mr. President,
Yes, Dan.
maybe what could help us, David, is if you could just give an example of, you know, one of these active learning labs, and you have students bringing all sorts of different devices, and, you know, maybe an example of a problem and how maybe they would all congregate around one device to see how it works on that device. I guess I'm just struggling a little bit given all these different types of devices and capabilities. I also can envision, you know, getting the IT people coming into the room to get everything working too. So,
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to come up with a specific example, but I'll share an experience that we actually had as our administrative leadership team. And this was not this past year, or not the year that we're still in, but feels like this past year, but the year before, so the 2011-12 school year. And Nancy led us through an experience where, as adults, we operated in this BYOD environment. And some of us, the only device we had was a phone. There were a variety of devices. And the trick is the complexity of the task. The task needs to be deep enough, and we're not talking about, you know, a sheet of 40 math problems or a multiple choice question based on your social studies text. Real world challenging tasks that students need to attack. So if it's a social studies setting, let's say it's an American history class, it may be students that are exploring the arguments on either side, whether to declare independence or not. And some students are interacting by doing what we would consider traditional research. Other students might be using their phone. It's interesting because one of the ways that sometimes phones are used in this learning environment that we don't think about is they call someone. You know, we're thinking about all the high-tech stuff you can do. They pick up the phone and they call someone and say, you know what, help me understand this. And there are several examples of that sort of thing happening. And then there may be some data crunching that would need to take place. Well, then we might need the laptop. The iPad's not going to cut it because we're going to be dealing with spreadsheets and a lot of manipulation. But the students are faced with a relatively complex task that doesn't have a right or wrong answer. It can be attacked from several angles. And then the students come around, they devise their plan, and then come forth with some sort of plan to.
And then usually there's a choice on how they present that information. So again, when we were working in our teams, some people did a PowerPoint, others decided to do, throw pictures up, and there was some kind of, perhaps a poetry or a song that went with it. But again, it's a lot of it is the team collaboration piece as well. So it's not so much everyone working individually on that device, it's the team effort.
Mr. President, did you say that there will be devices available to students who do not have them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I made a note here that you said that they would only be available, district devices would only be available to students who qualify for free or reduced lunch? Or did I misunderstand that?
Well, there'll be some devices available, in the building as they are available. So there are what we call cow labs, so computers on wheels. So there's like 30 computers in a storage device. So if they're available, I could borrow one of those. If an English teacher has checked them out for that hour, I might not be able to use those. So as available, they'd be there. But there would be devices provided for anyone who does qualify for free and reduced lunch. Was that making...
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding why you're cutting it off at free or reduced lunches. Somebody might be right on that borderline. They're not qualifying for it by $2 a year.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't qualify to have access to what you're talking about. That seems to be pretty arbitrary to me, that cutoff.
And it might be something that we do need to look at. Right now we just have a tentative number of the number of kids we know in middle school and high school, and we'll probably just have to look and see how it goes the first year and what we can
I just
modify.
wanted to ask because it's almost like saying to the other kids that you don't qualify because your parents have too much money, or you don't qualify because you're not poor enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not a good message.
We
just my
definitely,
thoughts.
I'm sorry. So we definitely don't want access to be a limiter. So it's something that we will need to continually explore.
Mm-hmm. That's my point.
Yeah,
I
this
don't.
is the maiden run, so we'll have to learn from our experience.
Right.
Thank you.
And it is a partnership. The buildings are always buying devices. Parent groups are buying devices. So hopefully our access will keep increasing over
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
So in summary, really, the intention of this is to try to help students understand how they can use technology to gain knowledge, to gain access to knowledge and so forth.
Correct.
I'm assuming. So.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, technology as the vehicle, but it's about engagement, and there's no doubt that technology aids in that endeavor.
Is there any room for me to come to something?
Now, we're obviously working with our fine finance director, Tim Erickson, because there are things like David alluded to where we do have some hot spots where we need to fix some of our access. The fiber that goes from the high school to the middle school probably needs some upgrading. So there are, to be honest and upfront, there are some costs that will come to get this up and running as well.
Just one more comment, Tom. So I don't necessarily agree that's the objective. That's not, the big objective is not, hey, should I use a cell phone or should I use a laptop? The real objective is to learn something. So it just seems in general, the comments have been more around, it's interesting for the kids to learn, what device they use. That's not, I don't think that's what we need I don't think that should be the objective. And I'm not sure if that's what you're communicating, but that's kind of what I'm picking up at. I don't want this to be there's serious learning going on in education, and the idea is not what device do you use. And I don't want people huddling around a laptop because one guy has a laptop and someone else has a cell phone. I think it should be pretty consistent in a classroom. For this classroom, you need a laptop, right? because or this classroom is gonna be more, viewing content, not a laptop or an iPad, right? And I think we have to be pretty, we have to set that, because if it's not, I think it's gonna be a real challenge in the classroom. So, or if you have an iPad, you're gonna have to have a keyboard in this classroom. So, I think we gotta be really clear and not make this some kind of a, free-for-all where, so, I don't think it will be, but I just think we need to tighten this up a little bit more. So, that's my feedback.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have high school learning for the future report with Mary.
Oh, excuse me. I'm just going to introduce Principal Laura Love and incoming Principal Peg Shoemaker to talk about the progress on high school learning for the future, where we are and where we're going.
Hi, everyone. I am, much of my transition in the days that I've been able to spend in the high school have been getting up to speed on the high school learning for the future so that we don't miss a beat as we proceed forward. This is a bold vision, and we need to keep it moving forward for our students. And so Laura and I have been working together, partnering together in order to be able to keep that momentum going. So I'd like to refer first, actually, Diane, if you could show the visual. This particular visual, although at first glance may be a bit on the bizarre side, really talks a little bit about redesigning the DNA of how we do high school. So if you think about the DNA of a high school and the traditional type of high school structure that we've had, what we're about to do and have been beginning is really taking that DNA and sort of redesigning that, if you will. So you can scoot on then. I just wanted to talk about that. A lot of the pieces that I'm going to talk about tonight are structure pieces, and they have particular objectives that came from the vision of high school HST 2025. And so this is really a beginning launching of HST 2025, and begins with next year. Something really, really exciting is a structure designed for freshmen. We're calling this Freshman Academy. It's about 40 teachers who are actually relocating in the high school, which from what I understand is rather daunting, and relocating into a particular side of the high school on the west side. And on that side will be these freshmen, where students will take a portion of their classes during the day. This is replicating all of the success that we've had at middle school when you think about the house concept. Freshmen are our most at-risk students. Those are the students that have the highest risk of failing, of getting into all sorts of acting out and at-risk behavior. And so from the beginning of HSD 2025, we knew that we wanted to do something different for our freshmen. And so what we have is a group of about 40 teachers who will be meeting with freshmen. They have this structure during the school day where every fourth hour they will have time to actually discuss students, to design curriculum, and to put supports in place for our freshmen. We want to catch freshmen very early if they're struggling. And look, and we've got the system now that's going to be in place to actually catch these freshmen. So part of what will be happening is here's a new team of teachers that are actually going to be working together. There's a lot of excitement from the freshman teachers that I've spoken with, excitement about putting this new piece together. They are excited about working together and collaborating together. So that's one of those structural pieces that we have in place. In addition, we have the student advisory. We now, this year, have had our second year implementation of advisories. And next year, we will have our third year, so the class of 2017 incoming freshmen will also have an advisory. Same teacher for 4 years, so that partnership is going to be, and that relationship that we build is going to be exceedingly strong. Laura will be sharing a little bit later some of the data on our current advisory. There's some pieces that we want to move forward, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. We then have this opportunity, thanks to the vision of the district office team as well as the high school team and the support of the school board. And that is two structural pieces. One is project-based learning. The other is career partnership academies. Here's the beauty that we have for those pieces. We actually, most of the time that we implement education, we have to build the plane and fly it at the same time. In this particular instance, for a year, we get the opportunity to spend the year planning to actually implement the vision, the very bold vision that we have for these small learning communities and for project-based learning. We have two new people on board. We have Lisa Watkins, and Lisa is currently a high school science teacher. She will be released for a portion of her day, and she will spend a portion of her day designing a 3-year project-based learning certificate program for students, as well as designing course outcomes for a project-based learning course. In addition, we have Lynette Beinlich joining us, and Lynette will work specifically in cultivating business and community partnerships for the 2 academies, Human Services and Healthcare Academies, that will be implemented the following years, as well as Hudson High Tech, which will be implemented the following years. So those are the redesign of our DNA of high school. And you can see the goals that we have for the year. These are in draft stage. Obviously monitored and adjusted along the way, but enough that we are moving things forward at Freshman Academy. Part of what we'll be building on this next year is how to work together, how to catch kids in the net quickly, provide the support, how to get them invested in the high school, how do we get them involved in extracurricular, into clubs, and how do we develop these relationships with kids so that their course is set for a really successful high school years ahead. Then also the student advisory will be designing the junior curriculum for freshman advisory, as well as finding ways to get ongoing feedback and establishing some guarantees for our advisory curriculum. And then finally, with the project-based learning and the career partnership academies, really beginning to launch those partnerships with business and community. One of the pieces that we're really excited about is the Thursday morning speaker series. And what we will have is when teachers are in collaboration, business people, community people will be coming in to speak to any students that are interested. So we may have, for instance, a veterinarian, we might have a social worker, all sorts of businesses and community pieces, as well as potentially offering a series of seminars for seniors as well. So that's going to be happening every Thursday at Hudson High School, and will really cement that partnership between business and school.
Okay, so I'm going to talk actually about, the next page is directly related to that first page, just to give you a glimpse of what members do we have on each of the teams leading those initiatives forward. So we're going to skip over to the next page. And what we wanted to do is give you a sampling of the documents that we're using with various teams. You have probably seen this document before, and this just helps continue to communicate a timeline for implementation to sort of ease people's sense of transitioning this process in rather than we're doing this all at once. So I won't go into detail there, but you can see that what PEG has communicated about the coming year are the 3 things that are being implemented: new advisories, freshman academies, and then planning for project-based learning and career partnership academies. This is a sample of the way we designed our freshman academy teams. And each of those lines across represents 30 students, approximately, 25 to 30 students. So for example, in Academy 1, first hour, one group of 30 students will have Ms. Banky for English 9. Second hour, they'll have Mr. Walzak for science. And third hour, they'll have one of our new social studies teachers in social studies. And what isn't seen here is that we have a special ed teacher connected to these teams so that, as again Peg said, we will help support and catch students who are struggling very early. The great opportunity with these teams, just like in the middle school, is that each of these teams will meet every day to talk about students, to meet with parents, to design interdisciplinary curriculum down the road, and really to think about the kids that they have in their classrooms for those 3 periods. So this is part of our Freshman Academy design. The next page is just showing you where they're located. So this may not be as recognizable to you, and maybe what we should have done was put English 9 teacher 1 and so on. But essentially, this is the west wing of the high school on the south end, and within this square, all of our freshman academies are located. And the students stay here for 3 periods, either the first 3 periods of the day or the last 3 periods of the day. But additionally, beyond the Freshman Academy team, we have also relocated our freshman math teachers and our freshman world language teachers so that they'll probably more likely be spending 4 or 5 periods of their day in this area. One concern with that has been that we're kind of isolating freshmen, but many of the teachers in this area also teach sophomores, juniors, and even AP classes for juniors and seniors. So there will be a lot of integration. It's just that freshmen won't necessarily be moving back and forth across the building continuously throughout the day. Advisory, this is again just a sampling of communication we've recently shared with the entire staff. And so I wasn't going to go through the whole PowerPoint with you. You've heard a lot about advisory over the last few years, and I think even the new board members have heard about advisory through Rotary. And it communicates the goals that we have each year for advisory, and then just some of the details, that it's 4 days a week, 25 minutes a day with the same teacher over 4 years. And the goals are really about connecting with every student and making sure that all students' personal and academic goals have a plan behind them over the 4 years. The next is an example of ways in which we get feedback specifically about advisory from students in advisory. So this was a recent survey that we did of our students. Only freshmen and sophomores are in advisory, so you see that N equals 618 students, which is about 2/3 of our freshman and sophomore classes, so a 2/3 response rate. And you can see that some of the most important things that we want to have happen are happening in advisory. Even though, if you're a parent of a student in advisory, you may hear that students don't like advisory. And part of that is because juniors and seniors still get a choice about where they're
going every day, while the freshmen and sophomores are spending advisory, doing specific curriculum around advisory. But still, 84% look forward to going to advisory each day. 96% say they're comfortable in their advisory. Usually trust advisory students, 86% agree. Feel included in their advisory, 94% agree. And then you can see what the connection that students would have with their advisory teacher. One area that you might see as low is, would I talk to my advisor about problems I might be having with another student? That's not typically the role of the advisor, and only 44% say they would do that. But if they were struggling in a class, 74% say they would talk to their advisor about it, even though their advisor is not their content area teacher. Ask questions about school in general, 85% agree. And then, do I know the students in my advisory, 92% agree. The poster you have a picture of in the bottom right-hand corner is an example of ways in which advisory and our whole initiative for high school learning for the future are connected. So this is one advisory group's ideas. They're going to be juniors, and their service project was about supporting freshman transition next year. So one of the things that their plan is to communicate. We're pairing up our junior advisories with our freshman advisories next year, and then to communicate ways to be successful as a freshman and some of the expectations and rules that older students have for them and that the school in general has for them. And I think we have a video about advisory.
Do you want it now?
Yes, please. This is a video that we used. We asked each advisory to create 3 words that would communicate what their advisory's been about. And Ms. Langer, who's the administrative leader, put this video together based on several advisories, interviews, and 3 words.
I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light.
Sorry, it wasn't that shaky when we played it last.
Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there.
We have very young high school students.
And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you.
Freshman year
like
done.
4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah.
So we thought that was kind of a nice summary way to share with staff who are junior and senior teachers and not yet advisors, some of the fun things that kids are doing in their advisory classes. And Fun Fridays, we added advisory at the end of the year because we were making up extra time, and so Thursdays turned into the regular day of the week. And many of the advisories did inter-advisory competitions like tug of war and ultimate frisbee, and a lot of the teachers took that on their own, and it was really fun to see kids enjoying each other at the end of the year. So I think the next document is about project-based learning, and the reason I included this document was really more about we're really still in the beginning stages of project-based learning as a staff. This is probably one of the most transformative learning experiences for both students and staff, and the hardest really to get ourselves out of the mold of traditional high school. Very difficult for people to envision what real project-based learning looks like. Some people call it problem-based learning. Some call it, solutions to real-world problems. And essentially, it's students designing their own learning pathway about something they're passionate about, but us setting the standards about what we want to accomplish. So we have a lot of work to do. You can see that some teachers, 6%, still don't really know what it is, whereas we have 22% of our staff could explain it to a colleague. And we only had a 50 number, N equals 50, so not all of our teachers responded to this survey. Some, and on the list there you see teachers like Dan Weiland, who's been doing Project Lead the Way, and you may not have been able to attend the 4th year Project Lead the Way presentations, but students designed their own solutions to issues that are occurring and things that they could probably sell on the market, and they presented those to an audience, including engineers. And some of those are the kinds of things that we would like students to experience, but also experiencing learning beyond our 4 walls, and some of that will happen through the Career Partnership Academy. So we can continue to move forward. This is more of the response. Are you interested in adding more project-based learning? 30 teachers out of the 50 say yes. And are you interested in hearing more about project-based learning class? Most of them said yes. And then are you interested in professional development around it? And more than half of the teachers surveyed say yes. I think part of it, again, is just what is it? They don't really even know necessarily what it is. So we have plans to include project-based learning in more of our professional learning activities. You've probably seen this document before. I think all of you have. And it's just a reminder about the Career Partnership Academies that are on their way. The first 2 being, it's actually now called Human Services and Healthcare Academy, and the second also at the same time, Hudson High Tech Academy. And yet, students won't be in these academies their entire day. They'll actually have access to all of our electives, music electives, world languages, and AP electives at the same time. And down the road, fine arts and entrepreneurship, global learning, and environmental sustainability. This is just one document out of 10 for each of the leadership teams that are driving the Career Partnership Academies forward. We used the National Center on Career Academies and a couple other resources. And you can see that the leadership teams have designed objectives around 10 national standards, and those objectives have details behind each one of them and leadership teams and how we're going to evaluate those. So this is 1 page of 10 pages for each of the Career Partnership Academies. Some of it's related to connecting to the community. Some of it's related to board and district and administrative support. Some of it's related to structure. So just so you know, this is an example of a document that was created by teachers, administrators, Melissa Hansen, and in the future involving Lynette Beinlich, Lisa Watkins, and Peg as well. And this is a survey we give to students every year, and I want to talk about a couple lines in particular. We have basically climate questions and academic questions on these surveys, and I'm just going to highlight a few lines for you. So the first group up there is all freshmen. We separate them by females and males. Sometimes that gives us a little bit more specific information. In line number 2, advisories was partly implemented to address that question. There is at least one adult in this school I can talk to. And if you look at the first column for females surveyed in 2011, freshman females surveyed in 2011, we had 60% say yes, I can talk to at least one adult when I have a concern or a question. And as you go up in age, typically that response goes up. They find somebody, an adult in the school they feel confident they could talk to. But in our first year of advisory implementation, so the survey in 2012, that next column that Diane's highlighting there, it jumped to 87% of our freshman girls said they had at least one adult they could talk to. That was a much more comforting and confident number for us, so that students weren't getting lost in the shuffle. And then as you go over to the right, males said, 59% of the males initially before advisory said as freshmen they had an adult they could talk to, and that jumped to 78% and then 80% this year. So we were pleased with that number. I'll just stay on the freshman grid there for a bit, and I want you to jump down to students usually behave well in the lunchroom. So this is going to be line 5, I believe. And if you look at the freshman females surveyed in 2011 and just go straight across the 3 columns there, it went from 72% said yes to 68% said yes to 82% said yes. And the same thing happened with the freshman males. 66% yes, 53% yes, and then 70% yes. And the reason I'm highlighting this line is that we have a number of anti-bullying activities going on in Flip It Forward and in advisory. And what we saw was a change in the lunchroom climate from sometimes fights happening in the lunchroom to this year, I think maybe early in the year we had one fight happen in the lunchroom. But in the past, students saying they were a little bit, especially younger students, saying they were a little bit scared over time if they witnessed 2-3 fights in the lunchroom. So that's
Laura?
something I wanted to highlight.
Sorry. Just one point on that. Going from 2011, 2012, 2013, how are the numbers of students in the cafeteria?
Every year we had increasing numbers in the cafeteria. So from about 525 per lunch period to about 560 per lunch period. So getting tighter and tighter. If you go down one line, teachers communicate the learning targets daily. Now I've shortened kind of how we write these, so the language is a little bit different than the way that we ask the question. We didn't ask that question in 2011 because it wasn't a focal point for us as a staff, but we knew that research suggested that one of the most important student achievement gains you can have is when students know exactly where they're headed. And so in 2011 and then the beginning of 2012, we started kind of hitting this hard in professional development with teachers, and we began asking the students that question on the survey. And you can see that about 75% of the students feel like the teachers are communicating learning targets to them on a daily basis, and usually we say in student-friendly language. On the next line down, also highlighted after the first year of this survey was that we wanted specific feedback to be provided to students about their performance in classes. And so I'm pretty pleased to see the jump in the response from 53% and 57% for freshmen to 75 and 80% agreeing that feedback is provided to them in their academic classes about their performance. The last line I want to highlight is the last line on the freshman survey where it says, I'm being prepared for life after high school in most classes. I didn't misspell most, I was just trying to fit it in there. But you'll see that this is probably the most consistent response for both freshmen and sophomores. It's about 2/3 say, yes, I'm being prepared for what I want to do in the future. I'm not happy with that response, but I think it's a pretty typical response for high school students today. And you'll see more variation with that in the this year's all grades. And what I want you to think about is, I know it's hard to do tonight, but in 5 years, this is where I think you're going to see the most difference once we've implemented the Career Partnership Academies. This is going to be an area to watch. I'm being prepared for life after high school in most classes, and I think the transformative experience that the students are going to have in their project-based learning, and then having those classes connected to those experiential activities, you're going to see a jump, especially if you look at the bottom line, spring of 2013 for all grades. We see 66% of freshmen say yes, 61% of sophomores. It's going down. That shouldn't be happening when the classes they're choosing are more specific to their interests. It should be going the other direction. So again, I just want you to think about one of the really serious needs for high school learning for the future is in that bottom line, that students should be feeling that they're being more and more prepared for what they want to do in their lives after high school. I could go on about all this data, but I basically want to say that this is very valuable data to us. I think students understand that we're listening to their voice because we're surveying them on a pretty consistent basis. Students in advisory are surveyed in the fall, and then all students are surveyed in the spring. So in 2 years, all students will be surveyed 2 times a year with the same exact questions, and we'll have data over time telling us if we're really on the right track in their minds or not. So I think that might be my last slide, and I'm going to have Peg sum it up for you, and then time for questions.
So what we have on this page is more of a synopsis of what we've spoken about tonight with some of the specifics regarding what we have yet to do and what's been accomplished this year. I think Laura and I have probably summed that up in the conversation that we've just had in the past few minutes. So what we would like to do is to entertain questions or comments.
Any questions? Comments? I was interested to hear that the freshmen are feeling a little put off because they're the only ones that have to be part of this right now. Is that creating any kind of issues for you?
Be freshmen and sophomores, right?
Freshmen and sophomores, yeah.
I don't think it's creating issues. I think they're getting more and more used to it. I think they'll, as they become juniors, I think they see I think students deep down know the value and the extra effort. I wish I could share with you the individual stories of ways that students have shared appreciation with their advisors, because that's the real highlight, is the relationship between them and that advisor. But one of the other things that I'm excited about, but I will miss when I am gone, is that our sophomore advisors will graduate with their advisees. So at graduation, those advisors will be sitting in the row with their students in cap and gown, and I think you're going to see the connections that were created over 4 years. There are very few teachers and coaches who get that experience, band, choir, coaches who get to see the students for 4 years. Otherwise, there are no teachers who have a student typically from 9th grade to 12th grade. And so it'll be a wonderful and emotional experience in 2 years at graduation.
Mr. President. Laura, Laura and Peg, thanks for taking us through this again. I know, once we hear it again, it's just overwhelming, the amount of work and the amount of thought process and the scheduling and the coordination, and it's a very large body of work. So thank you for bringing this forward again. I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on, under the questions back on the previous slide, teachers go out of their way to help students? Were you shocked by that one? I was, based on some of the changes we've put in place to see that one.
They're teenagers, number one. And I actually just had a conversation with a teacher who has had students for 4 years, and it reminded me of a conversation I just had with a parent of a junior who said that her junior is already behaving like a senior. And it's that sort of angst at the end of the year, but they need to break away somehow. So we asked this survey came out May 22nd. So I think part of it is just that, and just not totally comprehending all that happens and goes into the extra effort that students have for them. I will say, though, that we're constantly doing that dance between what the students want and what we know as adults are good for kids. And it doesn't always feel good when we say, this is the way it's got to be. And so I think, it is a little bit alarming to me. I wonder if that will change again over time. But, all the relationships, even in advisory with the advisors, aren't perfect, and we're always working to massage those. So, yeah, I'd love to see that be really high. And maybe when there's always a survey, it's usually plus or minus 3% error or so. It could be that one day that the student had a bad experience with a teacher, and it was about that one teacher and not all their teachers too. So, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Peggy, this must be overwhelming for you, I imagine, because this is a big, big initiative, and for you to step into it, you sound
Laura's
like you're on
been
top.
incredibly gracious
Yeah, that's good.
about it, and I have a lot of support. So,
Oh, good. That's what
thank
I
you.
was hoping for. Good. Thank you both. Do we have any citizens request to speak, Diane?
No, we don't.
Okay, then we'll move on to topics for action. We have consent items. I'll take this as one motion. We can do that.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion for approval of the consent items, including expenditures in the amount of $2,092,389.
Okay, there's a motion.
$300.89, excuse me.
Okay, $2,092,389. Okay. There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, so the motion is to accept the consent agenda items as listed, including the expenditures of $2,092,389. The motion was made by Dan and seconded by Jamie. So, we've got that, Diane. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr.
Nancy?
President?
I had a note.
I'll just jump right in there.
Nancy,
Yes.
you have it.
Okay. Among the consent items, you did act upon a request of 3 support employees for retirement, and I'd like to mention those employees. Colette Howard has requested retirement from the middle school nutritional services after 19 years. She says, due to a personal endeavor, I find it necessary to retire from my position in the middle school child nutrition department. Thank you. I appreciate all the opportunities I've been given over my 19 years of service with the Hudson School District. The second support employee, Margaret Hayworth, 23 years in nutritional services, middle school. And she says, my leaving is a very bittersweet experience in my 23 years working for the nutrition department. Thank you for everything. And the third employee is Edna Vriedeveld. Edna is a secretarial assistant at the high school and for 25 years. And Edna says, with mixed emotions, I have decided to retire. As of June 12th, 2013, I have had quite a journey with my staff and students coming and going over the 25 years. I will miss the interaction with the students and staff, especially the special people that I work with every day. I will always have fond memories of my years at Hudson High, and I wish to thank everyone that has made that possible. Edna Vriedeveld. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary.
Mr. President, the action you have just taken was also the resignation of Director Corey McIntyre, and I certainly would like to thank Corey for his leadership in the district. He certainly contributed to continuing and advancing the programming in student services. Particularly, he's credited, along with staff, for reducing the referral and placement rate in special ed. Certainly that is evidence of more students learning at higher levels and an outstanding accomplishment. And again, you don't do that alone, but certainly we have a leader who's led that. He's also contributed to the Learning Support Services initial vision and worked very hard with Dave and Sandy to get that started and underway, and we look forward to that advancing. And so from our district administrative team, we certainly thank you for your leadership and being able to work with us and being a great team player.
I'd like to echo that as well. I mean, Corey has been a top-notch professional in our district and made a great deal of contributions, particularly as Mary stated, in terms of integrating that special population into our mainstream academics. And so we very much appreciate your efforts, Corey. Your future district is getting a great find, so I hope they feel indebted to us. And there's another retirement in there too, and that's Nancy Sweet, obviously, as well. You decided not to retire. Oh. Oh, that was...
I wasn't in there. It was months ago.
Just checking to see if you reconsidered. All right. Okay, we'll move on then. We can have a little fun at the school board, right? Can't all be serious. New principal for River Crest Elementary. Some exciting news.
Well, I have the honor tonight to recommend to you 3 new administrators with experience, outstanding administrators for the Hudson District. And we're going to start with Rivercrest, but first I'm going to talk about the new, the process for both Rivercrest and Willow River to find new incoming principals. And it was a combined, extensive process for those schools. 26 staff and parent representatives were involved in that process. And at the end of the process, I hope we didn't exhaust our candidates. They hung in with us. We were confident in the 2 finalists and the qualities and contributions that they're going to bring to the Hudson School District. So with that, I will return to Rivercrest. And I'm very pleased to recommend Kathleen Koppenberger. I didn't say that right. Koppenberger. Thank you. As the next principal of Rivercrest starting July 1. And so Katie, better known as Katie, please stand. There she is. It's nice to have her with us this evening. For the last 6 years, Katie has served as an administrator with numerous hats in the Grantsburg, Wisconsin district. She was an elementary principal of 2 schools, a pre-K kindergarten school and a grade 1 through 3 school. She was the K-12 curriculum director, the summer school director, and there's a longer list that I could keep going on. She was highly successful, along with her teachers, at improving student learning in Grantsburg, and described by those who worked with her as a phenomenal principal, a team player, smart and confident, adapts to whatever is in front of her, energetic and a lifelong learner. Grantsburg's teachers and support staff and parents made numerous positive comments, but one of them that stood out, this theme was, she looks for the best in everyone. Prior to becoming a principal, Katie was a music teacher. She served 6 years as an administrator and 10 years in teaching, and I'm very pleased to recommend a 2-year contract for Katie Koppenbarger as the next principal of Rivercrest with a starting salary of $101,817.
Okay, this is an action item, and so I'll entertain a motion to this effect.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Sandy, second by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor of acceptance of Kathleen Koppenberger as our new Rivercrest Elementary principal, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations, Katie. Can we call you Katie now that it's passed? Would you mind saying a few things? Come to the mic if you would. Okay. And just a warning to Kimberly and Tony, you're next. So.
Well, thank you very much for welcoming me into the district, and the interview process was very extensive, but it allowed me an opportunity to see a window into how Hudson runs things here, and it further confirmed for me that this is an excellent district with high expectations that I will be very pleased and proud to be a part of. My family and I are getting ready to move down here. We're very excited to make Hudson our home. When I selected a place to apply to, I was also selecting a school district for my children. And Hudson's reputation is excellent, and I'm very pleased that my children will be attending here. I'd like to say as well that the Hudson district puts out an excellent vibe about them. And I have met people in informal bases before I was a candidate here, Sandy being one of them at CISA meetings. And people have always been very professional, very focused on children, and have represented the district well, even when they weren't formally supposed to be representing the district. So I appreciate that, and I'm very pleased to be joining you.
Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to have you as well. So thank you. And welcome.
Thank you.
Our next action item is the new principal for Willow River Elementary.
And once again, I am pleased, very pleased to recommend Kimberly Osterhughes as the next principal of Willow River, starting July 1st. Kim, would you stand up, please? Welcome. Kim just finished 2 years as an administrator in the Shell Lake, Wisconsin School District. She again was principal of 2 schools, a pre-K through 2 and a grade 3 through 6 school. She was K-12 curriculum director, and again, many more hats because of the smaller districts. Notably, her grade 3 through 6 school was recognized by the DPI as a 2012-13 School of Recognition. Those who know her from Shell Lake said she was confident and intelligent, an incredible contributor, a good listener, absolutely dedicated, respected by staff who seek out her opinions. And one of the common themes we heard from her staff and parents at her school was that she put students first in every decision. Prior to becoming a principal, Kim was an elementary and Title I teacher, and she taught at elementary for over 18 years, is that correct? So I recommend a 2-year contract for Kimberly Osterhughes as the next principal of Willow River with a starting salary of $101,817.
Okay. Would one of the board members like to make this a motion?
I move to approve.
Jamie's made motion to approve Kimberly Osterhus as the new Willow River principal. as indicated or stated. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Kimberly, please come and speak to us.
I'll try to speak as eloquently as Katie did. I just wanted to say that the process that Hudson took to hire the new administrative positions was just very impressive, and it just supported why I wanted to become part of this district. I'm just honored to move forward with the Hudson district. I'm anxious to continue the work of the Hudson 2025 vision and all of the high levels of collaborative pieces that are already in place. I'm anxious to get to know the families at Willow River and work with the students and embedding my family in this wonderful school district. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Kimberly. Likewise. Next, we have our...
Sorry, just one other comment. Sorry, Mr. President. Both Kimberly and Katie will be at their respective schools tomorrow, working with our current principals, Peg Shoemaker at Willow River and Travis Behringer at Rivercrest, and meeting staff and students and parents. So we're excited to get them started and to acclimate them to the Hudson School District.
Okay. So we have a proposal for a new student services director as well, and this is kind of an interesting one. He's come back to us. So.
That's right. I'm very honored to recommend Anthony Mayer as the next Student Services Director starting July 1. And you alluded to, he is a Hudson High School alum, class of 1992. So, Tony, would you please stand? Through a hiring process involving 16 district employees, administrators, and student services personnel, Tony was selected to fill this district level position. For the last 5 years, he served as the special education administrator in White Bear Lake. He's gained extensive experience in special ed program design, implementation, and supervision and evaluation. White Bear Lake educators who know him well spoke very highly of Tony, his talents and skills, and his readiness for this next step of becoming a director. Some of the quotes that they had about Tony were, he's good at recognizing people's strengths and putting them in a place where they can shine. He brings everyone's perspectives together. He goes above and beyond. He's a great balance between the technical and the human side of the work. He's a good catch for a district. He's going to be a star. We're fortunate to have such an outstanding candidate right in our own backyard in Hudson. And prior to working at White Bear Lake, Tony also served at that time as a school psychologist. So I'm very pleased to recommend a 2-year contract for Anthony Mayer as the next Student Services Director with a starting salary of $117,293.
Okay. I'll like to entertain a motion to accept Anthony Mayer as our new Student Services Director as recommended.
Mr. President, move to approve.
A motion by Lynn.
Second.
Second by Sandy. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Welcome, Tony, and come on and speak to us, please.
I'd like to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and the opportunity to work as the next Student Services Director for the Hudson Schools. Coming through our school, some of my most important friendships and memories were formed right here. In fact, one of those memories was working with my high school psychology teacher, who really set the course for the rest of my life. He took a lot of time to get to know me. He had high expectations and challenged me all the time to do my best. And then he captivated me with his enthusiasm and passion for psychology. And that set the course for me to become a school psychologist and want to work with students in our schools. When I moved back to town 10 years ago, I started to follow the school district very closely, and I wondered if those same qualities continued to define all of the staff in the Hudson schools. And it's become so evident to me that they do. Our students here are making exceptional progress, and we have a clear vision for how to help our students become successful in the 21st century. So it's the personal experiences that I had in our schools, along with the district's continued commitment to excellence, that have really made it a passion of mine to come and work and join your team. Tonight is a dream come true for me to be joining your team, such high-quality educators and staff. I want to thank and recognize Corey McIntyre and the entire Student Services team for their outstanding work, and I want you to know how excited I am to be joining you. I'm looking forward to many wonderful years here. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. I'd just like to briefly comment that I'm very proud of the leadership of this district. I think they're top drawer, and we're sorry to lose some of our leaders, and very happy to welcome these 3 new additions in our leadership, frankly. And there's been given testimony by Kimberly tonight. The process really does work and mets out the best. And that's what we believe we have. We're excited to have you here. When I talk to Mary on the phone and she's all excited about these candidates, then I feel good. I feel good about it. So welcome, and we're great to have you. We're excited about this district, and we're moving forward with some wonderful cutting-edge things that I think I speak for the board, are very excited about too. So, all right, enough of that. We'll move on then to the employee handbooks, extra duty pay rates. Lynn and Nancy.
I'll start off, Mr. President. Before the board tonight as a topic for action is the extra duty pay rates and pay rates for substitutes, summer programs, services, and occasional employees. As you may recall, in May, the board approved contract amounts for athletic and non-athletic extracurricular activities. Tonight, we're considering extra paid duty rates and pay rates for substitutes, summer programs, services, and occasional employees as the last section of this board-adopted handbook provision. Similar to contract amounts for athletic and non-athletic extracurricular activities, the majority of these pay rates have been in place for a number of years, a minimum of 6 and over 10 years in some cases. We used the Big River schools and the 23 schools included in the teacher salary study that were surveyed, and the amount of data provided by the other schools varied. There are not as many recommended changes to this section as there were to the extracurricular contracts. Only 12 of the 57 extra duty pay rates are recommended for increase. Professional development for other staff, class advisors, department heads, team leaders, foreign language communication assistants, educational assistant substitutes, lifeguard, swim instructors, and summer school age care and custodial employees. Proposed to you this evening are 2 new extra duty assignments, one having to do with long-term substitutes, pay for support employees, and the other for special duty assistants, offering to work in the same summer school programs with the same students they are assigned to during the school year. The new assignments are difficult to fill positions. The cost impact for the approval for these recommendations for extra duty pay rate increases is estimated at between $40,000 and $45,000. The Finance Committee unanimously endorsed the recommended pay rate increases, and the Personnel Committee voted 2-1 to approve the pay rate increases. Nancy, can you walk us through some of those highlighted changes?
Sure. Okay. What is displayed and in the board book is part of the employee handbook for support employees and also the employee handbook for certified employees. And the first change, as Lynn indicated, is in teaching, and that is professional development provided by teachers to other teachers generally. And we were below the median in that particular domain. We not only looked at median, but we looked at rank, and we looked at how the other 23 schools were compensating their teachers. So we're recommending a $1 per hour increase from 23 to 24. And moving on down to miscellaneous, very much behind other schools in several of the duties, one being class advisor, one for each grade level, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Bottom of the Big River schools reporting. Our compensation, $100 per year, and the average or median being $365, and we're recommending that change. Department head and team leaders, and we do differentiate and have had a past practice of differentiating the number of members of the team that the head chairs. With 1 to 6 members, we have paid since 2007 $400 per year, and at that point we raised it from $350 to $400. We're recommending $979, and we're recommending a differentiation of $100 for larger teams. Our teams, one of the largest teams is in student services, and there are 23 members, so there's quite a variation there. Then another, moving right through kind of linearly here, foreign language teacher providing communication assistance. This is a low incidence need, but it is a developing and growing need. Generally speaking, we have teachers, Spanish speaking teachers who can assist communication with parents who speak little English, and that particular position is difficult to fill, and we're recommending a $5 increase to be comparable to some other schools as well. Moving on down to support staff substitutes, we found ourselves in the comparable in most of the substitute areas, with the exception of educational assistants, both special and regular. And we're recommending a $1 per hour increase from $960 to $1060, again, to be more comparable to what other districts pay. Moving through further, this is a new area, and this has been a very difficult to fill position, not only for educational assistants, but for custodial employees and secretarial employees. And like teachers have a long-term substitute rate different than the daily rate, higher. We are recommending, in order to fill these positions, we're recommending $1 more per hour, from $960 to $1060, for long-term subs, all but educational assistants. And we're meaning 20 or more consecutive days less than a full school year. And for the educational assistants, $1 above that substitute rate to $1160. We found ourselves comparable for substitute teachers. We're number 2 ranking in the Big Rivers, and we're not recommending a change in that particular area. The schools that we, just to look at that, because that's, let's see here, Chippewa Falls 85, Eau Claire 98, Menominee 9180, Rice Lake 100, River Falls 95, New Richmond 93, and Stillwater, the only one that's above us, is 115. So that's not recommended for a change. Then moving to the summer program, an area that's worth commenting on, again, a difficult to fill position and a need for our special education students. We would propose, if summer school special education assistants working in the same early childhood, CID, which is autism, cognitive disabilities, and emotional behavior disabilities with the same students that they're assigned to during the school year. If they were to be interested and willing to work in that same capacity during the school year, it would greatly benefit our students, and we would propose that they receive their regular school year rate of pay. We've combined in this handbook provision lifeguard instructors, WSI certified. We used to differentiate the two, but now we hire only WSI certified lifeguards. And we're proposing one rate of pay at 11. And getting to the end here, during the summer, some 50-cent increases to $1 and $1.50 for high school and college students serving during the summer facilities and grounds and school-age care, and some differentiating for returning employees who do not need to be retrained. So that's more detail than, is that what you were looking for, Lynn? Okay.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation for changes to the employee handbook regarding extra duty pay rates. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Motion by Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion?
Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. We'll have a roll call vote. We'll start down here with Jamie.
Johnson, aye.
Bell, aye.
Robson, aye.
Holland, aye.
Hanson, aye.
Gerke, no.
Okay, motion carries, and those changes will be made then. Moving on then to the 2013-19 Safeway Bus Company contract. Dan and Nancy.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bus contract probably looks familiar to several of you since we've visited this in the past. We've had a great relationship with Safeway Bus Company over the years. I think they've been very accommodating to us, and when we've had issues along the way, I think they've worked with us. And I think what we're proposing here is an example of that great relationship that we've had in our revisiting this contract. The last 6-year contract for Safeway was in 2008. The contract provides for extensions not to exceed 8 years in total. The board approved a 2-year extension in June of 2011, if you recall, in part due to the outsourcing to Safeway of the district transportation specialist position. The current contract expires June 30th, 2016. The contract in the contract, it states that the parties shall make reasonable efforts to meet for the purpose of discussing the negotiation of a new contract no later than 2 years prior to the expiration of the contract. So we're on par with that. The proposed contract incorporates the language from the 2011 extension and adds district-owned vehicle services in Article 2.16. And if you happen to see that, I thought that was a very favorable provision for us, in that any work required to our district vehicles, they don't charge us for labor, just basically the parts. So I think find a mechanic that will do that. Let's see, most other changes or updates include eliminating the district transportation office specialist, deleting transportation service for half-day kindergarten, and aligning the contract with our board policy changes done in 2011. Then further into the contract, you'll notice the compensation rate summary. There are also compensation implications related to charter service in Article 10.05. The rate increase, as you'll see, is a 0.5% increase for 2013-14, and the CPI with a maximum of 2% and minimum of 0.75% for the remaining years through 2019. So I think if you turn to those pages, like on page 25, you'll see under the existing contract what it's being revised to, that we are achieving some savings with those rate changes. So I think that's favorable for the district. As far as the Finance Committee, we unanimously approved the renewal of this contract under these new terms, citing the reasons in the meeting that the rate was low, very competitive, and a long history of safe and otherwise quality service. And I guess for me that has a child in the middle school, and I know I've talked to other parents as it relates to bus services in Hudson, I think, you know, it's been very good. And I think if you look under the tab, one of the things that's cited by the bus company, it says Safeway has transported students for the Hudson District for 22 years with over 14 million miles traveled in that process with no major student accidents or safety issues. That's pretty impressive to me. And, you know, I think for bus companies, isn't it sort of safety number one? So I think that has to be high on our list when we're making a decision over a bus company. We also, I don't know if it was Tim or Nancy, but also tried to do a comparison with some of the surrounding districts, as hard as that is, just because of the formulas and the contracts. But I think this was one of the questions that came up in our Finance Committee in terms of comparisons. And in doing that, it looked like Hudson was $201, New Richmond $231, and Stillwater was $309, trying to do a fairly reasonable comparison. Tim, do you want to comment on that any more than the fact that?
Well, I think Nancy and I both sat down and we looked at, we had information on contracts from 4 other districts, neighboring districts. And when we looked at, number one, the percentage increase that's being proposed tonight, it's very favorable in comparison to those other contracts. And when we looked and tried to, it's difficult to get a true apples to apples comparison because each district transportation contract is different in how they arrive at their rates. But when we try to apply our routing to these other contracts, the rates were very favorable.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Jamie.
Are we going to be paying less this year than last year? Then it looked like some of the projected miles are going down. I was wondering why that was, and certainly the projected increases are smaller than the prior contracts.
Well,
You want me to start out?
oh, okay.
I think there's been, you know, Nancy maybe can speak a little more on some of the adjustment to the miles, but we'll pay, you know, certainly a 0.5% going into this year. That's been changed. It was 1.5% going into this next year. It's down to 0.5%. So there is savings there in the rates. The other piece of the contract, other large piece of any transportation contract, are the fuel costs. And there are escalator and de-escalator clauses in all of these transportation contracts. So depending on fuel prices, where fuel prices go, we should hopefully see some savings. If fuel prices remain constant, we'd see some savings in this.
If you examine page 25 a little bit more, there is a history there. In 2011-12, 0 increase. 2012-13, 1%. The board had approved previously 1.5 for 13-14 for next year. It's now 0.5. And the board had approved for 14-15 and 15-16, 3.75% increase, or the CPI, whichever is less. And we were able to negotiate a CPI with a maximum of 2% and a minimum of 0.75. Extremely favorable to the district. The other part of it, of course, this is a big part of it, the cost of student transportation, but we have a whole notebook of data gathered about the performance of other bus companies around us. And it's outstanding, the difference. So we have that kind of data too, the performance, the on-time performance, the safety issues, and I know from a first-hand basis in terms of overseeing the day-to-day, the relationship is really good. It's excellent.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Nancy, I know that they took over scheduling from the district. How has that piece been working out for us?
That piece is working out really well. I mean, they are the experts in scheduling and routing, but we have in the contract the approval authority. And so each of the years, I would approve the routes and sometimes ride the routes if there were questions. They seem to always be looking for efficiencies, but they also operate within the Board of Education policy guidelines in terms of the length of time students can be on the bus and et cetera, you know. So we work really very, very well together, and I would expect that to continue. It was that way with my predecessor in my position, and that's been my experience as well.
Thank you.
I think one thing to note is that we're their only customer.
Yes.
So I think that's an important aspect. The fact that they're local as well, I think is really beneficial to us.
That's correct, and their drivers are veterans. There's a lot of veteran drivers, and many of them live in the Hudson community.
Does that conclude the?
Yes, unless there are questions.
Okay, it does. So then I'll entertain a motion to accept the 2013-19 Safeway Bus Company contract as has been extended and amended.
So moved.
Motion by Brian. Is there a second? Second by Bruce. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on then to Community Service Fund 80 School Age Care Staffing Request. This is Lynn and Nancy.
Mr. President, before the board tonight and previously reviewed by the Personnel Committee is the School Age Care Program staffing request. Based on, as Mary pointed out earlier with the numbers that we have in our programs, based on an increased program use, it's being proposed to increase the school age care secretarial assistant hours from 500 per year to 770 per year, which the adjusted schedule if approved would be approximately 15 hours per week. As I said earlier, the request is based on increased program use. School age care program registers and handles over 500 families and 700 students during the school year. Approximately 400 children are registered for the summer program. The school age care program has a $1 million budget that supports the program on 5 different school sites. The program is experiencing significant secretarial work backlogs, including but not limited to web page updates, records management, inventory maintenance, marketing materials, and the all-important bill collections and receivables. So the school age care program coordinator is also performing some secretarial duties which are interfering with her priority professional work and responsibilities as well. The Personnel Committee considered the proposal last week and unanimously endorsed it. And that concludes my report unless Nancy has information that she wishes to share.
Okay. Just a question. I believe that this is a program that is self-sustaining.
It is. It's a fee for use program. It's a Fund 80, not a general fund supported program.
So it covers all of its.
It covers its own costs.
Including with this addition.
Yes.
Mr. President, I neglected to state the cost. The estimated additional cost is $3,861.
Okay. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept this staffing request for the school-age childcare program.
So moved.
Motion by Sandy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving then on to Community Service Fund 80, facility staffing request, facility user fees, and revision of policy 1340. This is a Lynn.
Thank
Tim,
you,
and
Mr.
Tracy, I
President.
believe.
Board members, before you again, and due to increased facility use, the district has experienced both internal use and external demand for the use of our facilities. And due to some partnerships, we've sat down as a group and tried to figure out how exactly we're going to be able to fund that and make it a cost-neutral proposal. The plan would be to open the high school, middle school, and Willow River on Saturdays and Sundays and make it available to outside groups as the priority user. To accomplish this, there'll be additional staffing expense and building operational expenses to ensure both safety and security of the facility and the users. To cover the cost incurred, facility rental fees will be increased. In doing the analysis, the proposed fees fall in the low to middle range of neighboring districts. As I said earlier, the goal was to have the program be a cost-neutral proposal so that our community and our internal users can use the facilities. And so Tracy Habashaline has met with groups that will be, and she's here to answer questions as well, has met with groups that will be the most impacted, and you know, she'll go over with you, but the reaction has been mostly positive. They want greater access to our facilities. We will have better consistency in scheduling, ensuring that groups will go through scheduling and will also improve the safety and security of our buildings. And the policy has been updated to reflect the priority use change for weekends and ease the implementation by updating and improving priority 2 language. I'll turn the floor over to Tracy and she can go over some of the other details. Or Tim? Or I'm keeping the floor.
We'll take team on this. I'm going to just refer, I'm going to talk from the summary first and kind of give you an overview of what we're looking at. And Tracy will add in to a comment on some of the meetings that she's had with the public groups that are really going to be most impacted by the change. But as Lynn had said, you know, we've had a lot of requests to open our buildings up on weekends, and if we can accommodate that, we'd certainly like to. The problem is, with that comes additional cost, and so the proposal, as far as the additional expenses, you can see we have a community service program specialist increase in full-time, and that's to handle the additional scheduling requests. We've got a building monitor, and Tracy can speak to that a little bit more in detail if you've got questions on it. Auditorium manager increase in time. Again, I'll defer to Tracy on that if you've got questions. 4 part-time custodial positions, which would be new, and that would be to cover, of course, the increased hours at the high school, middle school, and Willow River for the weekends. And then we've got a little bit of time for custodial supervision, which would really be on a call-out basis, so it's a pretty small amount. In addition to the costs here, we've got some overtime savings, and so when we net those against the staffing costs, we get net staffing costs of about $52,000. Of course, as with anything, when we're keeping our buildings open, it's almost like we're having school, because we've got some very large events that bring in, you know, sometimes upwards of 2,000 people, for example, in the high school. And so we have to do all the things that we would do if we're holding school. We have to plow parking lots. We custodial staff will have to clear sidewalks. We've got to have to heat the buildings. People are using the buildings, so there has to be additional supplies that will be incurred. And so that's estimated at about 32,000. And then finally, to improve our efforts across the board with scheduling, Our plan is to have a computer for each custodial office so that they're able to access the program. We have some computers, they're old, they just don't run the scheduling software very efficiently, so this is going to increase our efficiency and increase our communications and really make our scheduling better. So total estimated cost of about $94,000. And then you'll see shortly after this the new fee structure that's being proposed. And so those fees are estimated to raise about $90,000. So we've got a net cost of about $4,000 to do this. And so if we go to the next page, again, I made, Tracy, if you want to talk a little bit about this, because you did a fair amount of research on rates, again, for neighboring schools in the area. And you can see our priority 2, 3, and 4. Priority 1, of course, are school activities. So anything under normal school activities, which also includes community education, school-age care, those are all priority one activities. But we're going to talk a little bit about fees and where we fall.
Sure. The priority 2, which is what a lot of our users, that's probably one of our largest users aside from our internal users, and most of the changes when we look at the policy as well as some of the fee changes really directly impact those groups, and also our reasoning behind going out and speaking to those groups prior to you making a decision, which they all were very appreciative of having that heads up before such a big change came into place. And as Lynn had stated earlier, most folks are very favorable to those changes. When you look at, or previously, our fee for priority 2 and other users were very limited as far as the spaces that we were charging fees for. So we were really just charging folks primarily for our gym space, and both the larger gyms and the smaller gyms, and the pool. And we use all of our space when we're looking at meeting the needs of both our internal users and the community groups. So we use the high school commons. We use all of our multi-purpose space, the cafeteria space, and we, prior to this recommended change, we're not charging folks for that space. Though we were still supporting all of that in our scheduling and supporting it with our custodians, and also would like to support that use through what's identified in the staffing as the building monitor, which is really about safety and security in our buildings and also customer service. When we have some of our buildings with multiple events going on and people not knowing where to go, this position will help with that. It will also help with the conflicts that arise because we have a lot of users, and our custodians really are not there to be the police in the building. They're there to do their work, and often get pulled into things that they really are not there for. So that would support this position. So the fees that you see here look significant, but when you compare it to what other school districts, our surrounding school districts are charging, we're, as was said, at the lower end to the mid-range. So quite appropriate for what, in comparison to what other school districts are charging. The significant piece, as Tim, Jim Stayskull, and myself were looking at how do we make the space most available to our internal users and community, was looking at that weekend time and how do we not just fill up that time with our internal users if we open up Sundays. And so the big shift that happened, or what's being recommended here, is that on Sundays we change the priority use from our internal users, our priority 1s, and switch that so priority 2 users receive that number 1 priority. And what this will allow many of those groups to do is hold the tournaments that they'd like to have, which helps support their expenses in using our space. The other change here is to clarify the priority two. It was somewhat ambiguous, but really the intent has always been with this policy that the priority two groups were those groups that are nonprofit, community groups that had a youth-focused mission, and we're just really trying to clarify that, and meaning youth-focused mission with its participants primarily being Hudson youth and children and youth, and looking at that 85% being the goal that the participants are actually Hudson youth. And then an increase in the contribution to the district from 500 to 1,000. All of those groups are already reaching that. So it really just brings the policy in line with what we're already receiving.
So again, when we look at the fee increases, they're really meant to cover the additional costs that the district incurs in providing facility use to other groups. And when we looked at the fee increases, even though they're, the fees are going up, but really when we look in comparison, we're really low to the middle of the pack here. They're not certainly not excessive. So. Any questions for Tracy or I?
Mr. President,
Yes.
the Facilities and Grounds and Personnel Committees of the Board of Education have reviewed and endorsed the plan.
Okay. Any other questions for Tracy or Tim or Lynn?
Mr. President, I
Jim.
just had a question for Tracy on raising this ratio of minimum number of Hudson children and youth that would be participating from 75% to 85%. Was there any specific groups that would be excluded that currently are using the facilities?
No.
Or that would be pushed to priority 3?
No. We were already, really what that 75% previous was really benefit. It benefits youth. So we're really trying to, so we would have groups that would come in that can argue, and you can make an argument that many things benefit youth. And so it was really looking at making it very clear it was about youth participation and not solely about benefiting youth. And so that's
So the
really
combination of factors between participate rather than just benefit and raising it from 75% to 85%.
correct. Correct. And I did bring with all of the groups, so I met with the Basketball Association, HASA, the Swim Association, Boosters, St. Croix Attack, which is our volleyball group, and lacrosse. I put out the opportunity to all of our current priority 2 users, and I really wanted to meet with those larger users for sure before we met. But that question I did present to all of them about the 85%. Croix Attack has some, depending on what part of the season they're in or which session they are in, their numbers vary, but we'll be okay with that percentage.
Because you take the overall average throughout the year rather
Correct.
than just looking at one season.
Correct.
Yeah, this is an improvement to the language of the policy. It's going to help us to be more consistent in the application. As Tracy mentioned, the wording was a little bit cumbersome before to try and go through. So,
Right.
Just want to clarify, Tracy taking over this area has really been focusing on consistency and the decisions and groups and so forth. So certainly there have been groups that have had concerns in the changes in consistency, but that's different. That's a different issue than moving forward with this change presently.
Mr. President?
Yes, Dan.
Just a couple comments. I think I've made it clear that when it comes to these types of activities, I'm more concerned about making sure our costs are covered instead of where we stand a month's whatever, because that's going to vary so much in terms of what's driving the costs with our district versus another district. So these are community facilities. I think it's very important that we make these facilities very open and accessible and affordable to people in our community. So I can't necessarily tell from this fee structure where that puts us, but I certainly hope it doesn't put us in a position where we're making money on this project as opposed to just making sure that our costs are covered, so.
Absolutely not.
And I also understand the priority given to, the Hudson school activities versus other community groups. That part I get, but I don't want to start creating barriers where people say, well, using the Hudson School District facilities are too cost prohibitive. Let's go down to the FIPS or let's go someplace else where, they're a little more user friendly. I don't want to develop that type of reputation. I want people to feel welcoming about the use of our facilities, even if it does cost us some to maintain them.
I can use one example, HASA, if you look at the pool. The HASA currently is charged $9 an hour to use the pool, and if you look at where the rate moves them to $30 an hour, which is the biggest increase for any of the user groups, and they're also, the number of hours that they use at the pool is significant. HASA did feel that this rate change was reasonable.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I just want to address your concern. That was a lot of the conversation and dialogue during the committee meeting, and I think all of the board members present wanted to figure out how exactly we can open up the facilities more to these users, but yet be able to cover the cost. So, I think our plan would be to try to look at them annually and see where we're netting out and look at our fee structure and see how it's working.
At least with the changes that have been presented by Tim tonight, the additional cost and the additional revenue nets out to a negative $4,000. So we don't know what, that's a projection. We don't know what's going to happen. And as Lynn has said, and I'm part of the facilities committee, we'll continue to review it.
Yeah, we really, that's exactly right. These are projections. We need to go a year through this to see what bears out, but we can certainly review it and make tweaks and make recommendations again the following year. The comparative information was presented to the committees so that they had an idea of where we fall in our rates, and we're mid to low.
Also, to follow up, Dan, with what your concern about being accessible, I think moving in this direction, as Mary was saying, also about being fair, equitable, and consistent, has been huge in our relationship with the community. And I feel much more comfortable moving ahead when this is clarified, as it is here. So that we're better able to serve people and be helpful.
Mr. President?
Yes, Sam.
The Personnel Committee looked closely at this, and we asked the same questions that Dan had, that we didn't want to create a situation where this became a profit center, and it does not. We're still under what it will really cost us, but it is an effort to open the facilities, make them more available to the public, which is a very good direction to go.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that this is a Fund 80, so it has nothing to do with the general fund. I just want people to know that this is not general fund money. This goes in and out. It's just simply money in and out of Fund 80.
Correct.
Okay, and I think that's a clarification that even the public should know.
That's a good clarification, too. Thanks. Okay. Are we ready to have a motion on this?
Mr. President, move to approve the Community Service Fund facility staffing, user fees, and revision of the policy as presented.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Motion by Lynn, seconded by Sandy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving then on to copier proposals and lease agreements. Dan and Tim.
All right, let's get into copiers. We're looking at our copier proposals and lease agreements. We do this sort of on a 3-year cycle. And we're up to review that again. So we've gotten some different proposals from copier companies. And the goal here is to replace all of the 31 copying machines throughout the district. Plus, we have the document services system in the ASC building for the larger projects. The new agreements are estimated to save approximately $50,000 for the 3-year period. The costs are displayed on the handout that you see over 3 years. Several initiatives have been implemented to reduce reproduction costs, such as each employee has a limit on the number of copies that can be made annually. Each employee has their own ID number that must be entered prior to using a copier. Employees submit larger jobs to document services to reduce costs. More scanning of documents is being done versus printing, and electronic job request submission increases efficiency of workflow. So I think what's gonna happen through, if the board approves this, is not only are we gonna achieve the savings, but we're gonna have some district-wide better equipment. And I know with the Document Services Center, we're going to go from one large copier to 2 smaller ones for efficiency and backup purposes. So this came before the Finance Committee, and there was consensus on going forward with this.
Okay. Tim, anything to add?
No, I think Dan covered it all, unless you've got questions.
He's a superstar. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion, and we can get to discussion, but I'll entertain a motion to this effect.
Move to approve.
So Brian has moved to approve this proposal for a 3-year period of 2013 to 16 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jamie. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving then on to commercial insurance proposals. Dan and Tim again.
All right, I'll hang on to the floor here. Commercial insurance proposals. Here again, we're revisiting our liability property workers' comp insurance. And what we're proposing here is piecing together using different coverages to provide the school district with the best possible insurance program. The recommendation is Spectrum Insurance Group for providing auto and liability through the Community Insurance Corporation. The property coverage is with the Local Government Property Insurance Fund, and workers' comp is through RAS, or Risk Administrative Services. Premiums are about $1,500 more with Spectrum. However, the $5 million non-aggregate coverage for general and auto liability provides better coverage than the $6 million single aggregate coverage with Gallagher. So that last point, I think, is a key one, in that by having it as even though it's a lower single dollar coverage, it's non-aggregate. So, as opposed to using the alternative $6 million aggregate coverage, if we had a $6 million claim, that would pretty much exhaust the coverage available to us, creating some potential exposure to the school district. So by having the $5 million as a non-aggregate coverage, it helps us out in the event of multiple claims. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. Anything to add, Tim?
I don't. Again, I think Dan's covered it. So.
All right. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept this this proposal for commercial insurance has been presented.
I would move to approve the recommendation, Mr. President.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Jamie and seconded by Lynn. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our last item tonight is varsity baseball field, land use agreement with City of Hudson.
That would
Lynn
be
and
me.
Tim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before the board, and the last item under the topics for action is the land use agreement with the City of Hudson at the high school varsity baseball fields at Grandview Park. There have been 3 entities involved with this project. The Dugout Club, who has graciously donated and offered to donate the $35,000 necessary for the project, the city, and the school district. The land use agreement addresses the strip of land north of Grandview Park parking lot and south of the Hudson School District varsity baseball field. The agreement is needed because the press box and concession structure will exceed the required setback requirements from the city property, and a variance is also needed. And the benches and pedestrian pathway will encroach on city property. The project consists of a press box concession structure. It's a 2-level structure, approximately 18 by 24, on a concrete slab. An access path will be paved from the parking lot to the structure. The backstop will be moved in, so the structure itself is located entirely on the district property, and then the bleachers will be relocated. Maintenance of the structure is the district's responsibility. Enclosed in your packet is the land use and lease agreement for your review, and the Facilities and Grounds Committee of the Board of Education has endorsed this project. We'd also like to thank the city as well as the Dugout Club for working together with the district on this project.
I do have one small thing to add here. Just came from the Board of Appeals at the city tonight, and they did approve the variance. Okay. So we're very happy to announce that, and
good.
So you can hopefully go ahead and approve the land use agreement like I told them you would.
You promised?
I said 99.9% sure.
Wow.
That concludes our report, Mr. President.
Tim's got power. Okay. I'll accept a motion to this agreement regarding the land use with the City of Hudson.
So moved.
Motion by Dan.
Second.
Second by Sandy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our items for action. We do have a preliminary budget report for 2013 from Tim.
Okay, thank you. I'll start out by making a few general comments. The Finance Committee reviewed this budget at last week's meeting. And I want to add, this is the first preliminary budget. So there are going to be some additional iterations. As many of you know, we go through this and the numbers change. Most significantly, what will happen is at the state level and what's approved as they work through their budget process at the state. Joint Finance did advance an omnibus bill, so we'll be waiting kind of on pins and needles until July 1st, when the Department of Public Instruction gives us our aid estimate, and then we'll move on from there, and we'll get a final estimate, a final aid amount from the state in October, and then you will pass a final budget in October. The aid projections from the modeling that we use right now, we use a Baird model, and it shows our aid increasing for this next year by about $2.6 million. Part of that's due to student growth, and there are a number of other factors in the state aid formula that makes that number go up by 2.6 million. The budget includes previously approved board staffing. We also have the extracurricular and non-athletic pay that was also approved by the board previously in that, and it includes an estimate for salary and wage increases. We have a couple of things that don't happen all the time in this budget, and one of those things is we have the estimated decrease in federal aid from sequestration of about $118,000, and so at this point that's an estimate until we get more information, which flows from federal down to state and then to school districts. So we'll wait on that and see where that number actually comes in. One of the things that happens is we for a past number of years we've under levied, and so this also includes an under levy. So we're levying $12.7 million under the available revenue cap. It includes safety and security improvements, and those are about $400,000. Later this month, we'll be bringing back a more complete plan on the safety and security and the detail of that plan to facilities and grounds. And then it also includes our pre-referendum contract, and then we have estimates. I put estimates in for County Trunk UU. Thursday, we have a joint meeting with the city, the county, and the township to talk about UU and the extension of utilities. At this point, there's $100,000 put in for studies. At this point, we don't know exactly what that number is going to be until we make some more progress on it. But again, a placeholder. And then the other piece that you heard Sandy and Dave talk about, some of the infrastructure upgrades for the bring your own device, and so increasing our bandwidth, et cetera. So that's about $300,000. So those are things that are really more of one-time occurring costs that are included in this. And so just kind of going through the budget, you can see the property taxes would be about a 4.14% over last year. But I direct your attention down to the very bottom. When you look at debt service and general fund together, it's about a 3.56% increase. And so if you compare that to CPI for calendar 2012, calendar 2012 CPI was about 2.07. So we are a little bit above that. And then we've got salaries and benefits, that would be 5.79. So that's the new staffing that you approved. It also includes the insurance, the health insurance, et cetera. And then if we look under 300, which is other purchase services, those are going to be a lot of the infrastructure upgrades for IT, and the safety and security would fall under the 500, the capital objects. So again, those more along the lines of one-time costs that we're investing. You can see underneath at the very bottom, fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, and where that's estimated to be for 2013-14. And then again, the debt service levy is really fairly constant from this year to next. And then we've got that total levy increase of 3.56%. So, any questions?
Any questions of Tim regarding this preliminary budget?
Mr. President?
Yes, Jamie.
Okay, I have a question with the, you mentioned that the under levy was 12.7 million.
Right, that's an estimate for this 13-14.
Right,
yeah.
I know this is a very preliminary budget,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
is that based on a total levy then? So that's debt service plus general fund?
Yeah, that
what we'd be able to levy would be 12.7 million higher than what is projected currently.
That's right. We could levy 12.7 million higher in this projection. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Ryan?
Tim, are these the same numbers you presented to the Finance Committee?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, my comments there are still the comments I have now. I just think I'm just challenging us. A 7% increase in expenditures. I want to take another look at that. It just seems high to me. And given what's our enrollment growth this year?
Well, I'm looking at for this budget, and it's membership aid units. So that would be last year's is 1.3%.
Yeah. And I know we're trying to, there's some things that we did as a board in terms of investments we're making. We just talked around the BYOD. I know there's areas that we're trying to invest in, but I'm just, it just seems, I want to take a second look at this thing. I know this is preliminary, but those are my comments. So.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, Bruce?
Mr. President, you know, you look at the opportunities that we've found last year to the work that the board did, and of course through the administration as well, with savings through some of the benefits and services that we provided, and you know, to see the increase that we have there when we have, you know, 600,000 decrease by going to a self-funded insurance policy. Again, that might be an area to explore, but I would also challenge us to say, what are those next areas of opportunities that we have for savings that are out there? I've done a real nice job coming up with some savings opportunities in the insurance over the last couple of years. But what are those other areas that we might be able to, you know, find opportunities for save or, you know, something to go against the increase that we may see in some other areas?
I know one thing that we've done recently is some, that prior to your board position coming on board was in the areas of conserving energy. I think that was something that was pretty significant in the last year or so. Did you want to speak to anything else, Tim?
Yeah, over the past several years, yeah, on the energy conservation measures, we've saved well over $400,000 at this point cumulatively. I think if I looked at tonight with the transportation contract, the copier savings, and the insurance proposals, we're saving close to $100,000 there with those three things tonight. So we'll continue to work on that, and like we say, this is a preliminary first look, so we continue to work on those things.
I think there's a there's a factor here, and that is the drop in the state aid that's part of this, which you know we're dealing with. So
we're actually going up in this budget, in this projection.
Oh, what am I looking at?
Yeah, we're losing $118,000 though in the federal,
Oh,
estimated in the sequestration process.
Oh, okay.
Well, Mr. President, I just had follow-up to that because these numbers, I know, very preliminary, and I don't know how old they are, but do they incorporate the latest changes from the Joint Finance Committee? Because I know the legislature is not done with its work in Madison. That's what DPI is going to be waiting for on July 1st, but there was changes as of just late last week with the Joint Finance Committee.
Yeah, I wish I could say, yeah, we plug those in, but it is such a complicated process that the model that we use, they update that model as major changes are known, but it's so much of it's based on statewide data and how those numbers come in that unfortunately there isn't a way to exactly figure out what the impact is by district until the state does the analysis of it. So.
Mr. President, I have a question. The salaries and benefits are up over $2 million. When you gave all those salary raises throughout this last year, it was my understanding that money was in the 2012-13 budget. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if that money, the increases were, I think, over $1 million of salary increases, 1.3 or something like that. If that was in the $36 million budget for 2012 and 13, why would our salary and benefit increase $2 million from 12-13 to 2013-14?
Yeah, there's, first when you look at the new staffing that was approved, and so we put, that's included in this, which is about, about $465,000 in salary. So, and then related benefits. And then you've got health insurance. So health insurance, the district portion of that was somewhere around $300,000. And then we do put in, as we go, we do need to put in something, for an estimate for wage and salary increases. Again, we don't disclose because we have to negotiate with the union on that, but we do have to put that in. As you know, we had, when we looked at, I can give you an example here. Prior to where we are now with the change in law and bargaining law, if I looked at a couple of examples, I think we had total package increases, and I'm going to talk about bargaining with certified staff, which ran in some years 4.66 to 5.3 in total. We have a need to attract and retain employees as well. So again, these are preliminary, they're estimates, and well, that's.
I have one more question,
Sure.
or comment, I'll say. No, I'll put it to you as a question. Is the figure going from 36 million for wages to 38 million? Is there padded money in there anticipating that the administration is going to come back to us this coming year and ask us to try to get everybody closer to that median? Is that money already in the 38 million? You're anticipating that request?
There's been a percentage applied to total wages and salaries. There's been no plan
For
put in
that
place
purpose.
to figure that out, but there's been a percentage applied.
Okay, so in the 38 million is enough money that when the administration comes and asks for that increase again, like they did this last year, there will be money in the budget so that you can then again say, well, there's money in the budget, we can do it. Correct?
Well, I would say, I would answer that by saying that there's dollars in there for bargaining increases. There could be dollars in there for that. It just depends.
Okay.
And I can't pinpoint and say, yes, it's just one or the other, but it's
And
very
that's
general
not-
in how
that's
we've
not
arrived at that.
unusual. I mean, that's not, we do this every year. We have to account for wage increases every year.
I just wanted to clarify
right.
that money is already in this 38 million.
Yeah, that's the difficulty about not knowing.
I couldn't really say that it is until, if I knew what the negotiated increase was, then we could go back and figure that out. I could answer that question, but
Thank you,
otherwise
Tim.
it's pretty tough.
Thank
Yeah.
you. You've answered it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments? The capital objects, they're standard, I mean, they're an ongoing cost that we have. That's increasing, yeah, it's a little inflated at 46%. I mean, it's $400,000, I think.
Right, and that's due to, when we look at safety and security and
Yeah.
IT infrastructure, those are covered under the other purchase services, which is 300, and then the capital objects, which is 500.
Yeah.
That's the reason for those increases.
Oftentimes when we've tried to look at areas to save money, we looked in the capital area, but we have to be careful about safety issues. We have to be careful about, doing some things that cut costs now and then cost us much more later. So,
Yeah, we need to maintain buildings, and certainly we can get into deferred maintenance situations where where it's costing more money in the long run.
okay.
Mr. President, I just had another question, I guess, more than anything. So if I was hearing the discourse when you were answering Sandy's question and Tom's question just now, for instance, that salaries and benefits, if roughly 450,000, I think you said, are related to new staffing, then that would mean that the 1.5 million that's anticipated for growth in other salaries and benefits would represent roughly 4% then. So you're assuming some kind of increase, but a 4% would be closer to what it is, right?
I'd have to say that also includes our projections to try and figure out and estimate how much benefits cost, but the 465 is wages and salaries that were approved. That's one of the larger pieces.
But that was for new positions or whatever. Yeah. I'm just looking at the apples to apples comparison from year over year. Then we're closer to 4%, and that's combined with benefits, which you don't have as much control over as salaries.
Well, yeah, it's again, it's a general estimate at this point until we have more information about where we're headed with that. So.
And then you had mentioned in Tom's question the other purchase services and debt and capital objects. Those two items, obviously that doesn't have anything to do with salaries and benefits, but that's $1 million increase between those two items and represents roughly, if my math is right, 16% increase in those two areas
Yeah,
combined.
those are substantial, yep. And again, not things that we have in a normal budget all the time. These are they're really add-ons, if you will.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment that this district has history of being very prudent in its management of its resources. And one thing I'm very proud of. And so it's like pushing against two ends. We want the best. We also want to be as thrifty and efficient as possible as well. So sometimes, that's the dynamic that you've got to deal with. How much do we want the best, and what does it really cost us? Those types of things. So that's any future discussion that, of course, this board will be into as well.
Maybe add on to that a little bit, Tom, is that, when we look at statewide per pupil spending, Hudson is at the low or one of the lowest. And when you look at the underlevy, again, Hudson is, in terms of size, when you compare us to others, no one comes close to the underlevy that Hudson does, and that's a great benefit to our taxpayers.
And my comment wasn't to try to squelch any look at efficiency, of course, only that to put it in perspective.
Can I just ask one other question?
Sure.
Do you know what our levy increase was last year, what percentage? I believe it was something over 3, wasn't it?
I'm going to take a rough guess. I think it was 2.87 or 2.85, somewhere in there.
Okay, thank you.
So my comment is 7% doesn't seem thrifty to me, and I think we should take it down. So
we will continue to work on it.
Yep. Okay. And we'll look at any opportunities we've got, but in light of the things that we've set as terms of goals and objectives for this district too. So, all right, very good. Good discussion. More to come. So, before we let's see. Next is the committee reports. So we'll start with Dan, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you'll see, looking at the agenda, we've covered most of those items. We did have a closed session item regarding negotiating the student transportation contract, but all the other items we've discussed tonight, the employee handbook, copier proposals, commercial insurance, the preliminary budget report. We also had a brief discussion with, Tim gave us a financial update. And from what I recall is that we're pretty much right on track with both on the revenue and expenditure side. So I think we're in good shape there. So that's all I have, unless anyone has questions.
Dan, the Finance Committee. Okay, thank you. Lynn, Facilities and Grounds Committee.
Mr. President, the Facilities and Grounds Committee met on June 4th. We had 4 items on our agenda. The first, one of which has been reviewed and acted on, the varsity baseball field land use agreement. First item on our agenda was the summer capital projects, and Jim Stayskull took the committee through a review of the summer capital projects district-wide. They include items like carpet replacement, concrete and curb replacement, roofing, and seal coating projects, which are what I would describe as normal reoccurring projects throughout the district. Jim also updated the committee on other project work like the Willow River Kitchen remodel, the construction of the wall here at Rivercrest for the early childhood room, and the relocation of the high school media center doors to allow for more usable space in that area and greater circulation. Second on our agenda was the tentative 2013-14 capital projects. The district has undertaken a safety and security review of all of the buildings as a result of the tragedy at the Sandy Hook shootings. Each building was assessed, and as part of that process, law enforcement personnel officials toured our buildings. The administration is going through a process of prioritizing a list of recommendations to bring back to the committee for review. Funds are being allocated in this budget, as Tim mentioned, in anticipation of safety and security upgrades. Some other factors on the capital projects will be the implementation of BYOD and alternative learning labs, room moves at the high school, and professional services for UU. And lastly on our agenda was a secondary space for learning, which we just had a brief update that the next meeting regarding the feasibility of city utilities at UU will be with representatives of the city of Hudson, town of Hudson, and St. Croix County and the Hudson Board of Education, which is set for June 13th at 6 o'clock at Rivercrest. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Lynn.
Question?
Questions, Brian?
Lynn, is there a general feeling for how many of these classrooms in the high school will be these learning, these digital learning centers?
I would have to defer to.
Yeah, and then is there a plan to kind of extend that, in subsequent years?
Correct. We're mainly targeting social studies.
Yeah. And how much is a classroom to retrofit it?
Now that one I'm going to have to, let's see. Dave and I both have those. We brought that with us. I just have to re-find. I'm hoping. We know that the table and chair set with for 32 is 11,836.
Yeah. Okay.
That's with all the technology pieces.
Well, the issue for us is because it's not, we didn't build this with the buildings with this in mind, is we have about a $4,000 electrical bill in order to bring the wiring down to those units.
Yeah. Yeah, just my thought is, as we're thinking around that, if we had money to allocate to a digital learning experience, are we better off spending money? I think the 2 classrooms would be interesting to see how it works. But if you think around, investing in this, are we better off subsidizing more, more computers and iPads or whatever, or Chromebooks? Is that a better use of our dollars to get a great digital experience or having these classrooms? That's just something that we should probably think about, if we have X amount of dollars to spend, So, anyways, just a comment.
Okay. Mary?
Just one of the things that we have talked about, certainly that has been a consideration that we've discussed. But when we think about that, you have so many different costs that, number one, you have the cost of the initial investment. Then you have the cost of maintenance, and then you have the cost of ongoing sustaining that over the years. So it's a really significant cost. I mean, look at how do we provide devices. To increase devices that are available, we've been working on that for some time each year. So we'll continue to do that. But just know when we talk about devices, it's not about just investing in the one device. It's sustaining that over time. And we have looked at districts who have started it and had to back off on it because they didn't have the funds because of the financial climate and the changes in the financial climate to sustain it.
Yeah, I'd say sustaining and replacing with the change of technology as rapid as it is. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but the good news is, 85% of our students already have a device, right? So it's a limited number you have to provide for, and these classrooms will get dated. So any technology we put into a digital classroom is going to get dated too. And I'm just trying to think of the best way to allocate our resources so we have this great, digital experience for our students. And I just want to evaluate: is it putting money into classrooms and I'm doing that, or is it literally getting more laptops and other devices in the hands of our students who don't have one? So
probably a cost comparison that could be done too.
Yeah, again, that thing's for free. You can have that for free.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for facilities? Okay, then we'll stay with Lynn and move on to Personnel Committee. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Personnel Committee met on Tuesday, June 4th. We had 4 items on our agenda, 3 of which the board has taken action on previously. The last one on our agenda was plan for board policy update and pre-expulsion process. The committee reviewed a plan to support student services and human resources as part of a one-year transitional process. We gave some feedback to Mary and have asked her to go back and provide us more information on a scope of the work that's being recommended, as well as the costs associated with that plan, and we'll bring that back to the board at the next meeting.
Okay.
That ends my report, Mr. President.
Any questions or comments regarding the Personnel Committee meeting? Okay, that concludes our committee reports, and before we move to a motion regarding moving to closed session, I would like to just take the liberty to say a heartfelt thank you, really, to the folks that we're losing. Two of them left already, Travis Behringer and Laura Love. I personally appreciate so much the effort and the energy that they've put into this, as well as obviously Corey and of course Nancy. I mean, we as board members, and when you're in a position of president, you see a great deal more than you realize that what happens and what goes into these efforts. And so we will miss you very much, and we appreciate sincerely your efforts and your contributions, both of you.
I'll miss you too. I love board meetings.
What did you say?
I love board meetings.
Are you going to come to all the board meetings, aren't you?
I might.
All right. We are on a closed session, so I'll entertain a motion regarding moving to closed session. You'll read the information.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent E, negotiating the purchase of public properties.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Jamie?
Aye.
Bell, aye.
Robson, aye.
Holland, aye.
Hanson, aye.
Gerke, aye.
We are adjourned to closed session and won't be coming back to open session.